You are ostensibly nothing more than a common dog, yet you possess 6,800 years of cultivation. With a mere wave of your hand, you could extinguish a 1,000-year-old great demon in the mortal realm. Everyone believes you to be a reclusive deity, but only a select few know that 68 years ago, you were merely a stray dog, moments away from being turned into a stew by a beggar. Had it not been for a poor scholar named Teng Zijing who saved you, you would have already been consumed by that beggar. Since then, on the miraculous pearl within your body to cultivate, 1 year of your progress equaled 100 years for other demons, granting you a cultivation speed 100 times faster than your peers. Over the past 68 years, the destitute scholar of the past has achieved fame and prestige, rising to become the magistrate of Bailing. You have journeyed alongside him through countless landscapes. You watched him transform from a youth overflowing with vigor into an old man standing at death's door. When Teng Zijing had only 2 years of life left, he stroked your snow-white fur for the final time, and with a smile, shed his heavy official robes. With no attendants and no carriage, he carried only his old scholar's bookbox, and led you, disguised as a humble candidate, and his mongrel dog. Retracing the path to the capital trailed 60 years prior, you saved a small black dog that was nearly snatched away by a beggar. Outside Lanro Temple, with a single glance, you obliterated a 1,000-year-old tree demon that had been plaguing the people. At a rest pavilion in the capital, you suppressed the demonic aura within your body, and relying solely on your sheer presence, you humbled the arrogant nobles of the capital. Along this path, Teng Zijing was saying his final farewells to the world, while you recalled your first meeting 68 years ago. Yet a mortal body can ultimately never withstand the ravages of time. After returning from their travels, Teng Zijing collapsed from exhaustion and fell ill. The man who was once tall, sturdy, and filled with upright virtue now lay frail upon his bed. Even the simple act of lifting his hand to stroke you became a struggle, and even the most precious medicinal elixirs proved futile in sustaining his life. On the contrary, they only drained his vital energy and accelerated his demise. Life and death are governed by fate. You finally felt the profound weight of those words. Despite your immense demonic power and astonishing cultivation, you could only watch your dearest friend march, step by step, toward the grave. A frail Teng Zijing lay upon his bed and spoke to you. If no unforeseen circumstances arise, I have about 1 year remaining. Once I pass away, you should leave and go pursue the life you desire. Do not let yourself be bound by those useless descendants. Let them find their own way. Compared to them, I would much rather see you live a life of joy. Because in this lifetime, you are the one who has stayed by my side the longest and treated me the best. You understand me the most, and in the end, it has always been you. You remain silent. Indeed, you have relied upon one another, sharing life and death, never parting even through the most harrowing of times, having endured over 60 years of hardship together. In this world, how many such sincere bonds truly exist? Your silence is as good as an agreement. And Zijing smiled and said, I am weary, I shall rest now, his voice soft and faint. Very well. Teng Zijing closed his eyes, weary, and drifted into sleep. Time slipped away, and over a year passed. Throughout this year, Teng Zijing's health steadily declined, spending most of his days in slumber, with only brief moments of lucidity, during which you remained steadfast by his bedside. Teng Gengchen, his wife, also attended to him frequently, while his granddaughter, Teng Qingqing, would occasionally visit to spend time with her grandfather. Upon hearing that her grandfather was nearing his end, the child wept bitterly. She even clung to your legs, begging you to save him, a scene that left you both heartbroken and helpless. In this world, who could possibly care for him more than you? In those final months, Teng Yuxiu also arrived with her husband Chong Wulei. They traveled from Chunjiang County to visit her father. Chong Wulei, burdened by military affairs, departed immediately after the visit. Teng Yuxiu, however, chose to remain at the Teng estate for an extended period. As the days wore on, a sudden peal of thunder erupted across the sky, and boundless black clouds gathered, pouring down rain in torrents. Those heaven-covering dark clouds suddenly coalesced into a silhouette, looming firmly above the earth, taking the shape of a hound. The creature grew larger and taller, eventually obscuring the entirety of Bailing City beneath it, and continued to expand. With a sudden boom, an invisible ripple of energy surged outward in all directions, instantly enshrouding the whole of Bailing, and continued to spread far beyond, causing every spirit and demon to fall to their knees. They gazed up at the sky in terror. Fortunately, this terrifying aura dissipated as quickly as it had emerged. For prior to this, the blackened sky had already begun to clear. Because visibility was so poor, the common folk failed to notice that the dark clouds above had coalesced into the shape of a hound. They only felt the impending heavy rain and hurried home to bring in their laundry. Beside the bed of Deng Zijing, you sighed, your body radiating a brilliant white light that you had suppressed for 7,000 years. For a demon, cultivation is a series of trials, a minor tribulation every century, and a major tribulation every millennium. You have now officially reached 7,000 years of cultivation, A transformation even more profound than the threshold of 6,000 years. A demon with 6,900 years of cultivation could be suppressed by you with a single hand, and you could ascend to the heavens with a single step. If it were any other demon, they would certainly have to endure a terrifying heavenly tribulation. But because of your unique nature, you are temporarily exempt from such calamities. It could be considered a stroke of fortune, yet you find no joy in it. For you are 70 years old and Deng Zijing is 90, the very limit of his mortal life. The Book of Life and Death has inscribed his fate clearly. Baze, is it going to rain? Deng Zijing seemed awakened by the thunder. He struggled to sit up and asked, "It is a heavy rain," you replied, Baze. "I do not like the rain. I am afraid of the thunder." At this moment, Deng Zijing's consciousness was no longer clear. At times he seemed like a small child. "Then there shall be no rain. Go to sleep," you said softly, as if soothing a child. "Is that true?" "Then I shall sleep." Having said this, Deng Zijing laid back down. As your cultivation reached 7,000 years, the red dust hovering in the skies of Sanling was suppressed tightly by you. Where it could once stir, now, it could not even tremble. In the eyes of cultivators, this place holds no demons. From this day forward, so long as you do not reveal yourself, no cultivator shall suspect a monster resides here. 2 months later, on that very day, Deng Zijing could hold on no longer. His longevity had completely dissipated, but before his passing, he was not in the muddled, dreamlike state of the previous months. His consciousness cleared in a moment of final lucid reflection. He summoned all his kin and descendants, entrusting his final arrangements to them, one by one. Finally, he dismissed everyone from the room, leaving only you behind. He gazed at you, his eyes gentle as still water, for his life had finally reached its end. "I was born into a poor family, studying bitterly in my youth, attaining success as a young man, filled with grand ambitions, and in middle age I flourished in the imperial court." Having reached the twilight of his years, he had finally savored the warmth of a life well lived. By all accounts, his life held no regrets. Descendants must forge their own paths. He had no need to worry for them. Yet, it was you who weighed heavily upon his heart. "Baize, my dear friend, I know that you have attained the Tao and become a demon. You will wander this mortal realm through countless springs and autumns, enduring the biting cold and the sweltering heat. I wonder, will there be anyone left to remember you, to care for you? Will you be lonely? If I could, I would truly wish to remain by your side forever. Alas, it is beyond my power to do so. You have walked with me through the span of my entire life, but I can only accompany you until this very moment. The path that lies ahead, you must walk alone." At the very end, he looked upon his dear friend, a gentle smile of blessing gracing his features. "Baize, the mortal realm is vast and beautiful. You must go and witness it for me." Having spoken these words, his eyes closed, yet the smile remained fixed upon his face, never to fade. You gazed at the old man, who appeared as if merely slumbering, and bowed your head in silence as memories began to resurface. In a dilapidated temple, a destitute scholar cradled a filthy puppy in his hands, looked into your eyes and whispered, "From this day forth, you shall be named Baize." On the road to the capital, a man and a dog braved the wind and slept under the open sky. Through the howling gales and heavy snow, they pressed onward, leaving 2 long trails of footprints behind. In the woodshed of an inn within the capital, the 2 of you split a single cold steamed bun in half to share. Shivering from the biting cold, he hugged your trembling form and asked, "Baize, are you cold?" When he reached the imperial examinations, Deng Jing embraced you with fervor, weeping. "Baize, we have finally made it. We no longer have to endure such hunger and cold." On his wedding night, Deng Zijing instructed his wife, "Baize is my brother. You must treat him as family." When his child was born, Deng Zijing held the infant and laughed. "Baize, you are an uncle now." As his career ascended, Deng Zijing stood with you atop the high city walls. Gazing over the flourishing city, Deng Zijing stood before you, his spirit brimming with ambition. "Baize, look, is this scenery not magnificent?" Later, when he was demoted, Deng Zijing offered a bitter smile and said, "Old friend, it seems you must follow me to this desolate place." When his daughter was wed, Deng Zijing brought you to her new home to attend the ceremony, introducing you to the guests from all corners. "This is the uncle of my daughter." When his daughter began to speak, he knelt before the little girl and pointed kindly at you, saying, "This is Uncle Bai." These fragmented scenes flickered through your mind, ultimately coalescing into a single crystalline tear. 70 years is a truly long time. You cast your head toward the heavens and let out a harrowing roar. That roar shook the very heavens and earth, causing the firmament to change color. High above, black clouds converged as lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The entire Bailing city was plunged into darkness. Torrential rain descended as if the heavens themselves were pouring out their grief. This heavy downpour seemed to be shedding all of your pent-up emotions. Deng Zijing disliked the rain, so Bailing City rarely saw such storms, but now that he has departed, let the rain pour. This relentless deluge continued for 3 days and 3 nights. It only ceased once the streets were nearly submerged, and the Bailing River had burst its banks. Everyone was astonished, for such a downpour was a rarity not seen in 100 years. During these 3 days, many cultivators discovered the unrestrained demonic aura and flocked to investigate. Yet, upon sensing a presence so terrifying that it altered the color of the sky, each of them retreated with pale faces and trembling hearts. You, a great demon who had hidden within Bailing City for over 20 years, had always been careful to conceal your identity, striving to avoid conflict with cultivators. It was not that you feared anyone, nor that you lacked the strength to provoke them. You simply did not wish to disappoint him. Now that he has left this world, who is there left to make you bow your head? On the 4th day, a towering monk riding a lion appeared in the skies above Bailing City. He wore a golden kasaya, leaving half of his muscular chest exposed. On his right arm hung a golden bracelet, and behind his head flickered a brilliant halo, much like a golden muscular bodhisattva. He stretched out his arms, and the golden alms bowl in his hand suddenly took flight, expanding rapidly. Within a few breaths, it covered half of Bailing City. Blocking out the sky and sun, a golden galaxy seemed to swirl within that radiant light, exerting a terrifying suction force specifically targeting the demon. The demonic aura swirling in the sky, vast as the ocean, was drawn incessantly into the golden bowl. He was actively seeking the origin of this demonic presence. But in the very next moment, a sound resonated directly from the primordial spirit. The golden bowl appeared to have been struck by an infinite force, emitting a loud clang before being sent flying, shrinking rapidly until it vanished from sight. Not only that, but the towering monk riding the lion was also struck by that same force. Cracks instantly spread across his entire body. Golden blood erupted, and the halo behind his head fractured even further. His body was sent hurtling back dozens of yards, while the lion he rode exploded instantly, turning into a mist of blood and bone in the sky. Great demon, the towering monk regained his composure in the void, his face changing drastically as he turned and fled, vanishing from sight. Several days later, at the funeral of Deng Zijing before the mourning hall, you lay on the ground, lifting your head to look toward the horizon as you whispered to yourself, "Once the funeral rites are concluded, it is time for me to depart as well." Although the cultivators who have arrived in the short term are not to be feared, this world is not without hidden masters. Over the years, you have gained some rudimentary understanding of the human cultivators. Human cultivators primarily consist of the Buddhist and Taoist sects, and their combat prowess relies heavily upon their cultivation of the Tao. However, unlike demons, their cultivation is not measured by the number of years spent practicing, but by the profundity of their technique. 3 days later, following the conclusion of the funeral rites, Deng Zijing was laid to rest, not in Bailing City, but in Xuanzang County. Because this was his ancestral home, and the ancients always placed great importance on returning to one's roots. On the grassy banks of the Xuanzang River, a tomb fashioned from white stone was erected. Engraved upon the headstone were the words, "The resting place of Master Teng Ziken," his wife Teng Qingqing Teng Yushu, along with Chong Wuli and his wife, all knelt before the grave, kowtowing in solemn grief. As for you, you stood beside the headstone with a grave expression. It was as if you were witnessing the scene unfold from afar. After a long silence, Teng Yushu gazed toward the nearby Xuanzang River and spoke with concern. "This burial site was chosen by my father during his lifetime, but the elevation is quite low. The Xuanzang River often overflows its banks, and I fear for his peace." Ting Ziken sighed indeed. "The feng shui of this location is excellent. It is a fitting place for him to rest. It is said to bring blessings to descendants, but it is vulnerable to the surging waters. There have been many such cases in the past." I had originally secured a plot with superior feng shui at Qingfeng Mountain outside the city, and the price had already been settled, but father insisted, saying that the benevolent find joy in water, and was adamant about being buried by the river. Chong Wuli shook his head helplessly. "It cannot be helped." At that moment, a calm voice resonated, and everyone was startled. Looking around in bewilderment, their gazes eventually settled upon you, all revealing expressions of sheer disbelief. Teng Ziken muttered in a daze, "Uncle Bai." You did not reply to his address. Instead, under the watchful eyes of all present, you walked behind them step by step, stopping 10 paces from the tomb. You then raised your right foot and traced a single line across the earth. "From this day forth, the waters of the Xuanzang shall not cross this boundary," you declared without a hint of hesitation. Though you spoke, the voice that echoed seemed to possess a natural, profound authority, as if it were an immutable truth. It felt as though your words were the very laws of heaven. The Xuanzang River ahead seemed to possess a spirit of its own. The surface of the water trembled, churning like a pot of boiling liquid. Everyone watched this spectacle with bated breath, a vague premonition stirring within their hearts. They sensed that from this day forward, the Xuanzang would never again cross that line. Even if a dragon descended to the sea or a great flood surged forth, it would be forced to divert around that single mark, bypassing this. It took a long time for the crowd to recover from their shock. You looked at everyone and declared, "I shall return to seclusion in the Yang Mountains. If you encounter any trouble in the future that you cannot resolve, you may call out to me within your hearts." Having broken through to 7,000 years of cultivation, you possess not only the ability to communicate via your primordial spirit, but also a wondrous new power. Anyone you focus your thoughts upon while calling out in your heart, you will be able to sense. Uncle Bai, do you truly wish to leave? You could live here among us, Dang Kangshen said with reluctance. Indeed, we shall treat you as our own father. Deng Yushu also pursed her lips and said, Grandpa Bai, I do not want you to go. Grandpa has already departed. Do not leave me. Dang Qingqing began to weep bitterly as you approached her. You gently patted her head and said with a faint smile, Be good, Qingqing, and strive to grow. Study diligently, and endeavor to become a renowned woman of talent in the future. Grandpa Bai will also be proud of you. Dang Qingqing wiped away her tears and nodded firmly, pursing her lips as she replied, Yes, I will. Her clear, youthful eyes sparkled with a touch of stubbornness and resolve. You looked at Dang Yushu and said, Yushu, you are with child, are you not? You were always destined for a life of virtue and prosperity, but it seems your son shall be even more exceptional. Guided by the high star of Ziwei, he is destined for greatness. Uncle Bai, are these words true? You cast a glance at her, wanting to say more, but in the end you held your tongue. If the threads of fate cannot be altered, then what purpose is there in speaking them aloud and causing unnecessary worry? Living well in the present is what matters most. Take care of yourselves. You took a deep breath, spoke in a low, steady voice, and turned to walk into the distance. Everyone knelt down to watch your receding figure. Apart from the stoic Chong Wulei, the others shed tears, while Dang Qingqing wept even louder. Under the hazy gaze of the crowd, that snow-white silhouette grew increasingly distant, until it vanished beyond the horizon, toward the very same location where you and Deng Zijing had passed during your journey to the capital. These mountains were shrouded in mist all year round with few travelers, yet nestled within them stood an ancient dwelling. On that day, a beautiful woman dressed in red sat in a meditative posture. Deep within the ancient cultivation residence, she suddenly opened her eyes, her expression shifting drastically. Her figure flickered, appearing at the grand entrance, only to see a large white dog standing before the steps. Great One, is it truly you? Lady Hong's voice trembled. She spoke respectfully, and you replied in a low voice. My worldly matters are concluded, you said in a deep tone. Since my worldly affairs are finished, I intend to reside in your abode for a period of time. Would that be a problem? Lady Hong's body shuddered. Is it not allowed? You sighed, and she quickly replied, No, no, no. For the Great One to remain in my humble dwelling is a blessing I have cultivated over 10 lifetimes. I am overjoyed. Do come inside. Lady Hong quickly forced a smile. Rest assured I shall not stay here in idleness. At critical moments, I will provide you with some guidance. It will save you from taking many unnecessary detours. You spoke calmly, to which she replied, I thank the Great One for your favor. Lady Hong was visibly agitated, truly overwhelmed by the situation. To have a figure of such unfathomable depth offer guidance would indeed allow her to avoid countless detours in her cultivation. Within the mountains, time held no meaning, yet the human world remained a tempest of mortal dust. The sea of suffering was boundless. In the 5th year of your seclusion, the Emperor of the Great Yin, driven by a thirst for fleeting hegemony, launched a war of aggression against the Dongting Kingdom. This conflict raged on for 5 long years. Between the crushing burden of taxes and the frantic forced conscription, countless villages were decimated, leaving 9 out of 10 households abandoned. Through your heavenly eyes, you witnessed middle-aged fathers weeping to avoid being dragged to the front lines. Some even resorted to using stones to shatter their own legs, for they knew that to become a cripple was the only way to avoid certain death. As the common folk perished in droves, the national fate of the Great Yin began to crumble. The flames of righteousness that once suppressed evil rapidly dimmed and withered away. Consequently, the world fell into great chaos and demons began to run rampant. Even the reclusive Taoist priests and monks emerged one after another, yet they could not exterminate the demons that were multiplying everywhere, like a rising tide. You sit atop the mist-shrouded peak. Looking down upon the suffering world below, you let out a long, profound sigh. You possess cultivation base spanning thousands of years that could reach the heavens, and you could easily crush a millennium-old demon with a flick of your finger, yet you cannot salvage this collapsed world. Because only by ending the war can the flickering embers of human civilization be reignited, and that alone is the only hope for humanity. Finally, in the 10th year, the Great Yin Kingdom fell. There was no resentment over the destruction of a nation. Instead, countless commoners wept while embracing each other amidst the ruins, crying out that the heavens had finally opened their eyes, and at last there was peace. Within the capital of the Great Yin, the golden dragon of destiny dissipated in sorrow. The once high and mighty emperor stood with disheveled hair, swinging his long sword in desperation through the empty imperial court. Tears falling, he looked toward the heavens and laughed a wretched laugh. Regretting too late, he lamented that he had been wrong, and that the officials he had once purged were, in fact, the true heroes. He took his own life, falling into a pool of blood, but death would not grant him release. Two figures, shrouded in heavy chilling yin energy, rose from the ground, staring coldly at his corpse. You are truly beyond redemption, even after 10,000 deaths. You must suffer for 10,000 years in the 18 layers of hell. Ting Zijing, do you see this? The empire that drove you to the fallen Bailing County has itself collapsed, yet I still stand guard upon this mountain. This is the beautiful scenery you left for me to protect. 10 years after Teng Zijing's departure, the mortal realm had transformed into a living hell, and the great yin had fallen. The fires of war raged without end, and the light of humanity grew dim. Countless demons seized the opportunity to slaughter the living. You kept the promise you made to him all those years ago. You stood in his stead to guard this beautiful landscape. Hidden in the shadows, you became a bright moon. Every strike you unleash is accompanied by a shimmering white radiance, suppressing the countless demons that plague the mortal realm. The world does not know who you are. They can only regard you as their savior. Divine Venerable Master, you are Bai Tianzun, yet you care nothing for merit or worldly fame. You simply feel that this world belongs to him, the one for whom you risked your life to protect all those years ago. Finally, on this very day, upon the mountain peaks where dark clouds churn in the mist, your colossal manifestation rises. You have achieved a breakthrough after 8,000 years of cultivation, and as you suddenly open your eyes, once clear and profound, they instantly transform into a blood-red hue, stifling the breath of all who behold them. The blood eye of psychic connection. Once the blood eye is opened, all demons across the continents must obey your command, rendered nothing more than puppets by a single thought. Yet, the moment you step into this heaven-reaching realm, a tragic cry echoes within your heart. It is the daughter of Teng Zijing, Teng Yushu. For the past 10 years, the Teng family never sought your aid, even during the most brutal times of war, fearing they would bring trouble upon you. But now her voice carries only a heartbreaking sense of despair. Without a moment's hesitation, you take a single step, and in the blink of an eye, you traverse thousands of miles, descending upon the Zhongyang Marquise estate in Chunjiang County. The vast expanse of white mourning cloth blinds your eyes. You make no attempt to conceal your divine might, walking upon pure white light as you enter the mourning hall. The guards attempting to bar the guests are instantly held fast by your invisible aura, their eyes wide with terror as your 8,000-year-old demonic pressure descends. You withdraw all sharp radiance. You walk silently toward the front of the altar. Teng Yushu is kneeling there, dressed in mourning attire. Beside her kneels a young boy, roughly 10 years old, also clad in white. Teng Yushu suddenly lunges forward, throwing her arms around your snow-white neck, sobbing inconsolably. That man has died in battle. Throughout the Great War of the last 10 years, Chu Yu proved valiant and skilled in combat, achieving illustrious merits. His military rank rose steadily, eventually becoming the commander of an entire army, and amidst the fires of war, he was even granted the title of Marquise. But now this young, great general of the Great Yin has ultimately sacrificed his life for his country. You say nothing, merely extending a hand to gently pat Teng Yushu on the back. After a long while, she wipes away her tears and reaches out to hold the hand of the bewildered young boy beside her. Hai Te, this is your second maternal uncle. Greet him at once. The young boy obediently called out to his second uncle, and you reached out to gently pat his head. With a gaze filled with warmth and affection, the young boy let out a cry, instinctively wanting to say that this dog could speak, but under the fierce glare of Dam Nok Tu, he fearfully covered his mouth. Shrinking back, he is now 10 years old, yet he has barely seen his father a handful of times. He felt little grief over his father's passing, finding it both exhausting and dull to remain here. You looked at him, smiling and shaking your head dismissively, before turning to Dam Nok Tu to softly ask what trouble she had encountered. Upon hearing this, Dam Nok Tu's body trembled, and sorrow washed over her once more as she covered her mouth and sobbed. Uncle Bai, I dreamt of Nok Rong. He was sitting in an ancient battlefield beneath a desert sunset that never fades. He said he wanted to return to see me and the children, but he could not come back. A soul unable to return, a contemplative look appeared in your eyes. During your years of seclusion on Misty Mountain, you had heard Lady Hong speak of such legends. For Lady Hong herself was a female ghost with 3,000 years of cultivation. According to Lady Hong, when the number of soldiers who perish in a great battlefield reaches a certain scale, the killing, intent, and resentment on the field merge together, condensing into blood-tinted baleful energy that binds the souls of the fallen. Without a cultivator to guide them, they remain forever imprisoned there, unable to return home or be reincarnated. However, the baleful energy in such realms is harmful to practitioners, so most cultivators are unwilling to undertake such a grueling and thankless task. Many ancient battlefields, even after countless years, still remain filled with gloom, causing a chill to run down one's spine the moment they draw near, because the souls of the fallen remain trapped there, forever unable to find release. Uncle Bai, do you know what is happening? A flicker of hope appeared in Dam Nok Tu's eyes. She looked at her uncle with anticipation. If his soul was truly imprisoned by the battlefield, I could take action to guide him back. Is there any danger in doing this? And Noctu asked, her voice tinged with concern. Since he had already perished, she did not wish for her uncle to face any peril. To others, it may have been a great danger, but to you it was merely a trivial matter. You shook your head calmly. To the east of the Dongbao Kingdom lies the 10,000-mile desert. This place was originally a buffer zone between the Dian Kingdom and the Dong Kingdom, but it has since become a decisive battlefield. The two nations fought here to determine the fate of the realm, and the conflict was exceptionally brutal. The Dian Kingdom's army of 600,000 soldiers was utterly annihilated here, and while the Dongting Kingdom emerged victorious, it was a Pyrrhic victory that cost them 400,000 troops. It was a scene of true desolation, with corpses strewn across the land. Blood had stained more than half the desert, and as the sun rose, the sanguine mist evaporated from the sands, rising like the ghosts of the fallen. It dyed the entire sky in a crimson hue. Viewed from afar, it was a terrifying sight. Yet this desert, which seemed empty, actually concealed another world. A world belonging to the dead, the blood-colored spirit realm. Here it is forever twilight. The setting sun, like congealed blood, stains the desert a deep orange red, with the smoke of war rising straight into the heavens. The golden clouds stretch across the horizon, majestic yet sorrowful. Save me. Take me home. From beneath the golden sands, the cries emerged in waves. Save me. Take me home. The sounds resonated from beneath the layers of shifting sand, hoarse and mournful, like a gravely ill man with a throat choked by phlegm, emitting a strange, harrowing groan. Looking closer, one could see limbs and visages emerging and retreating. Faces with distorted features protruded from the golden sand as if someone were struggling within a mire. The golden sand is like an ocean, and within this boundless sea stood several jagged rocks, which were in reality undulating dunes. At one of these dunes stood a solitary figure. He clutched a spear in his hand, his head bowed, while a vivid crimson cloak fluttered behind him. He is Zhong Wulei, and a sorrowful melody seemed to emanate from his bowed lips. Suspended above this endless expanse of golden sand, a wave of profound grief spread through this twilight world. Here, the passage of time seemed to have ceased entirely. It remains this way for eternity. They are trapped here, neither living nor dead. Forever he had once struggled, screamed, and even collapsed in tears. In the end, he became as hopeless as the other souls. Numbed as if he had become a soulless husk, he sat there, unable to move a muscle. He hummed a melancholy tune. Mushu truly longed to see her one last time. A low voice emerged from his throat, each word uttered like a final statement before he turned into a puppet. This was his final glimmer of memory. Once this memory dissipated, he too would slip down the sand dunes like the other souls. The features of his face began to fade, much like the skeletons within this endless ocean of golden sand, wailing indistinctly without tears. At this very moment, a clap of thunder seemed to echo from above, and a deep, majestic voice called out his name. His body trembled slightly, still rigid like a puppet. He slowly raised his head to look at the sky, his senses numbed. His eyes were vacant, as if his very consciousness were about to be pulverized by this world. He was on the verge of falling into an abyss of nothingness. With a thunderous boom, a massive snow-white claw pierced through the golden sunset and descended from the heavens. The gargantuan claw tore through the sea of golden clouds, trailing shimmering strands of light, like ribbons of ice. A flicker of light appeared in the eyes of Zhong Wulei at the sight of Uncle Bai. He let out a low cry as he watched the claw reach down to pull him upward. As his body left the sand dunes, rising slowly, his gaze suddenly sharpened. His consciousness seemed to recover, and finally he completely broke free from his state of apathy. He tilted his head toward the heavens and pleaded, "Uncle Bai, they are all pitiable souls. Can you take them with us?" Among the souls below, some were his former comrades, while others were his enemies. Yet, regardless of their past, he hoped to deliver them all from this sea of suffering. Having endured that despair himself, he knew exactly what kind of wretched, eternal torment it was. Having reached this point, it was a task that had to be done. In the next moment, a colossal white maw emerged from the clouds and suddenly opened wide, as if it were swallowing the very heavens and earth. A terrifying suction force erupted from within, forming a massive vortex. Countless souls below were drawn continuously into its depths. It is unknown how much time had passed in this world of blood and iron, but millions of souls had already been swallowed within. Let us depart. The giant claw and maw slowly ascended, as if it had merely scooped up a handful of tadpoles. The cat's claws retracted slowly from the shoal of fish. As you withdrew your divine might, you laid down once more upon the desert of the physical realm. Now the shrieking wraiths dare not even approach within 10 meters of you. You shook the dust from your body and extended your claws. 1,000,000 souls, having lost their 5 senses, finally departed from the world of blood and slaughter. Their consciousness and appearances were restored, and each stood with tears brimming in their eyes. In unison they knelt before you, This snow-white giant beast thanking the great immortal for his guidance. A benevolence so profound they shall never forget it. You merely offered a faint smile. You have always acted on whim and never expected gratitude from these mortals. Yet, at that very moment, a sudden disturbance erupted in the skies above the battlefield. Countless strands of baleful energy coalesced, manifesting into an ocean of blood. The colossal waves surged, sufficient to terrify even the most seasoned cultivators to their very core. However, you felt not a shred of danger. Instead, you sensed an opportunity. This ocean of blood and slaughter was formed from the collective will of these martial souls. Now they radiated the gratitude held deep within their spirits. The once violent ocean churned in response to this emotion. Amidst the roiling waves, the ocean condensed a single thread of the purest essence of blood, which flew directly toward the center of your forehead. Within the chaotic universe of your mind, it awakened a miraculous pearl, granting you a cultivation speed 100 times faster than before. The pearl shone brilliantly, even carving a tunnel within your mind that led to an unknown spacetime. Your primordial spirit stepped inside and discovered a fissure in the rock wall at the end of the tunnel, from which seeped an incredibly pure baleful energy. It was the peerless power that only an army of the human race could condense. You understood immediately. This miraculous pearl had been digging into the very ley lines of your race's destiny. You had always considered yourself a righteous person, and how could you engage in such underhanded activities? Thus, you indignantly lamented the hardships faced by your predecessors, then decisively brandished your diamond claws and began to mine it frantically. What a joke. To leave such a great destiny right before your eyes would be the act of a fool. Besides, you were currently a beast in the truest sense of the word. After digging laboriously for a time, you gasped for air as you withdrew. In the real world, only a single moment had passed as you looked upon the million souls in the palm of your hand who were waiting in anticipation. You asked softly, "Do you fear monsters?" The spirits were stunned at first, then they all laughed aloud. "We do not even fear death. In this world, what demon or ghost could possibly compare? Could anything be more terrifying than this twilight world that drives one to despair?" You nodded once. "I shall take on the form of a monster to lead you home." You then soared into the sky. An aura as terrifying as a heavenly calamity descended from the heavens. Dark clouds gathered frantically with lightning and thunder, while your eyes turned crimson in an instant. Your eyes transformed into a vivid blood-red hue. Amidst the dark clouds in the sky, a colossal blood-colored eye manifested. An invisible shockwave, like a tsunami, immediately engulfed 10 miles, then 100 miles, 1,000 miles, across the Dongda Kingdom and the Dongdin Kingdom. Within a radius of several thousand miles, every demon in the world was instantly subjected to your forced mental control. Thus, a scene emerged in the human realm, one that was both shocking and absurd. By the small riverbank, a demon fish listening to a girl's confession saw its eyes turn blood red, burst through the water's surface, and transform into a dragon ascending deep into the mountains. A woodcutter, who had been diligently giving directions to a traveler, saw his eyes turn blood red and he took flight into the sky, causing the traveler to kneel and cry out to the heavens for a deity. A storyteller, who was preparing to finish his tale for the audience, struggled to maintain his final shred of reason before crying out, "Please stay tuned for the next installment," then vanished into the shadows with blood-red eyes. Inside a county schoolhouse, a teacher was still, gently guiding his students in their studies. Yet the moment he stepped outside, his eyes turned blood-red as he fell to the ground, howling, then lunged into the sky like a rabid beast. The more these 8,000-year-old demons resisted your will, the more they suffered for their defiance. That day, countless demons were drawn in by your blood-red gaze. They rode upon rolling dark clouds, swarming from all directions, gathered solely for the millions of souls held within your palm. As you paved a path back to your homeland, your crimson eyes opened wide. 10,000 demons converged upon the desert. Countless entities gathered continuously, their demonic aura rolling across hundreds of miles, casting a shadow over the horizon. Each of these demons possessed eyes blood-red like fresh gore, having entirely lost their sentience, their bodies now fully under your command. To them, it was as if they were sleepwalking. Many demons encountered interference from cultivators along their journey, but since they were currently under your direct control, you utilized your divine manifestations, channeling your own strength through them, easily suppressing the cultivators who blocked their path, as if you were striking out in their stead. A single blow fueled. Who could possibly stand in his way? He is like a demon among demons. With 10,000 demons gathered, is this immortal truly the ancestor of all demonkind? Millions of souls stood paralyzed in terror, gazing around to find the sky and the earth completely swarmed by demons. They filled the entire firmament, with countless demons manifesting in human form. If they were to reveal their true gargantuan forms, a radius of several hundred miles would surely not be enough to contain them. You number 1,000,000. There are 100,000 demons here. I shall pair you in groups of 10, and I will have them escort you all home. You spoke with a hint of fatigue, for controlling 100,000 great demons simultaneously, even for you, consumes a staggering amount of mental energy. You spoke wearily, as managing 100,000 great demons at once, even for one of your stature, exerts a tremendous toll on your spirit. It has been 4,000 to 5,000 years. We thank the immortal. Your benevolence shall never be forgotten for all eternity. May you achieve true immortality soon. The final words of gratitude were spoken with sincerity, perhaps the most genuine blessing you have ever received. They are not fools. They know well that this immortal is not a true deity, but a formidable and powerful great demon. Yet, they sincerely hope that this benefactor might attain the righteous path and become a rare and noble demon immortal. You felt an invisible power wash over your entire being, like a gentle breeze clearing the dust from your spiritual altar, causing your Tao heart to become clear and unobstructed. You shook your head and smiled. It turns out the karma of this world is truly profound. Very quickly, each demon revealed its colossal true form and began carrying these souls back to their respective homelands. Fallen leaves return to their roots. Perhaps they might see their loved ones one last time, while you remain resting within the desert sands. Closing your eyes, you poured your entire consciousness into commanding these demons. To command 100,000 great demons at once is a monumental task, one that drains both your mental fortitude and your demonic essence. Furthermore, should you encounter human cultivators blocking the path, the requirement to engage in battle would exhaust you even further. 3 days later, all the souls were returned to their homes, and you finally lifted your bloodbound divine ability, granting freedom back to those demons. You raised your head from the sands, exhaled a soft breath, and turned to look at the person still sitting within your palm. You said to Chu Kongli, "Let us go, I will take you home." Having said that, you ascended into the sky, flying toward the distance. Your exhaustion was immense this time, your demonic energy nearly depleted, leaving you unable to utilize the divine ability to traverse the heavens. You traveled with only a minimal expenditure of spiritual energy. Tam, you can fully recover your spiritual energy during the swift flight in the dead of night at Xuanzhang County, within the estate of the valiant Marquise. Tu looked toward the familiar figure opposite her, remaining silent for a long moment before tears welled up. She whispered, "My husband." Finally, her composure shattered like a vessel struck by water. She wept aloud and lunged toward Chu Kongle, but she fell into empty space. Her body trembled, and her gaze became even more clouded. 10 years of life and death, drifting apart in the vast mist. I never thought I would struggle so much to forget. Now after such hardship we meet again, yet we are separated by the divide between the living and the dead. Noctu, to be able to see you one last time, I am already deeply satisfied. It is only that, in the days to come, you must continue the journey alone. Chu Kongle forced a smile, his eyes incredibly tender. This was the unyielding affection of a renowned general. Tang Oktu could only shed tears, her body trembling, unable to speak a word. Her heart felt as if it were being torn by blades. She even wished to follow him, but she still had their children to raise, so she knew she must live. Gradually, the ground in the courtyard rose, emitting 2 plumes of black smoke that transformed into 2 soul harvesters. One of them spoke, Chu Kongle, "It is time to depart." Seeing the husband and wife trembling, is there still reluctance showing on your faces? Reluctance, yet utter powerlessness. The cycle of life and death, who can escape it? Wait. A calm voice drifted in from the side. The 2 soul harvesters turned their heads to look, and saw a large white hound standing there. One of them asked in surprise, "And you are?" You spoke calmly. "Haha, just a small beast that hasn't yet taken human form, and you dare to interfere in the affairs of the underworld? You truly have a death wish." Before the Soul Reaper could finish his laugh, a muffled thud echoed, and immediately, an invisible force slammed him directly into the ground. His soul nearly shattered on the spot. "Great Immortal, please spare my life." The Soul Harvester let out a terrified plea. With only the slightest movement from the opponent, he realized the reality of the situation. This was absolutely not an existence he could afford to provoke. The remaining Soul Harvester also trembled with fear. The hound spoke. "Great Immortal, please calm your anger. It is not that we do not wish to be accommodating, but we were given orders and dare not disobey." Who told the father-in-law of Chu Kongle to harbor a grudge against the city god? The city god refused to yield. Knowing that Chu Kongle's soul had returned, he commanded us to come and harvest it at once. Indeed. You suddenly furrowed your brows, looked at him and asked, "Who did you say was Chu Kongle's father-in-law?" The soul guide trembled, answering truthfully, "His name is Tong Tu Kin. He hails from the capital and is said to have served as a high-ranking official." You narrowed your eyes and asked, "You say he has a grievance with the city god?" "What grievance? What has become of Tong Tu King now?" The soul guide sensed a shift in the atmosphere. Overcome with terror, he dared not conceal the truth. When Tong Tu King served as an official in the capital, he orchestrated the downfall of a political rival, leading to the execution of that man's entire clan. That rival was none other than the 8th-generation grandson of the city god. Because Tang Tu-kin caused the city god to lose his ancestral incense and lineage, the city god vowed vengeance against him. Ever since Tang Tu-kin died, his soul has been kept in confinement. In the dark abyss of the Taizhou underworld, he endures torture every single day. The city god decreed that he must be imprisoned for at least 100 years before being permitted to enter the cycle of reincarnation. Absurd. Your eyes emitted a terrifying light, causing the soul guide's spirit to tremble so violently that he nearly shattered on the spot. Great immortal, please calm your wrath, the soul guide cried out in terror, prostrating himself. You withdrew your gaze, then looked up at the moon hanging high in the sky. For reasons unknown, tears streamed down from your eyes. I have asked myself for 10 years. I wondered why you had not yet been reincarnated. So all this time, you have been suffering in the underworld. Your heart was churning, contracting with a rage so profound it defied description. Deep within your spirit, a voice seemed to be screaming, and your very demonic essence began to spiral out of control. Suddenly, the water vat in the corner of the courtyard began to vibrate, the water inside dancing frantically. The tiles on the roof rattled violently, and the wind chime hanging from the eaves chimed with an urgent, dissonant tone. A wind swept in from the heavens. Dark clouds drifted in to obscure the moonlight. The Taizhou underworld, the city god of Taizhou. A long while later, the disturbances in the courtyard subsided, the clouds dispersed, and the moonlight bathed the earth once more. You turned and walked out of the courtyard. Uncle Bai, what do you intend to do? Uncle Bai, do not act rashly, and Chu Kong Lei cried out in alarm. They had heard whispers regarding the laws of yin and yang. To attack the underworld is to violate the heavenly laws. What exactly are these? They were unaware of the situation, yet they sensed that the matter was of grave importance. Who exactly is this person? The two soul guides trembled as they questioned Zheng Yushu, but no one offered them an answer. Chu Kongli took a deep breath, staring fixedly at the two men, his gaze icy. If a great calamity truly strikes the underworld, the higher-ups will surely be implicated. I suggest you both keep your wits about you and remain silent. Otherwise, you will find it difficult to escape the consequences. Yes, the two men replied, knowing that if things truly spiraled out of control, they would bear a heavy burden of responsibility, for they were the ones who had leaked the information. Stay here for the time being, and once the outcome from the other side is determined, I shall accompany you to the underworld. At that time, just claim that you encountered obstacles along the way, Chu Kongli said, his tone resolute. The underworld of Taizhou. This was a world governed by absolute sovereigns. Across all 12 counties of Taizhou, the souls of millions who perished had to arrive here before passing through the gates of the underworld to be reincarnated. At this moment, the air above the underworld was shrouded in mist, while below, phantom blue flames flickered along the pathways in ancient architecture. The roads were paved with bleached bones, and soul envoys chanted hymns of peace, maintaining order among the drifting spirits. These souls marched in a steady line, heading directly toward the gates of the underworld. Yet, the underworld also possessed prisons, to confine those who refused to accept their fate, those who sought to sow chaos or dared to harbor delusions of returning to the realm of the living. These malevolent ghosts were typically detained in the prison for a time. Those who showed obedience would be sent to the cycle of reincarnation, while those who remained defiant were subjected to endless torment. In the prison of the Taizhou underworld, screams echoed incessantly, yet the deepest reaches of the dungeon remained eerily silent. A youth with disheveled hair was bound to a wooden pillar, clad in tattered prison rags and covered in layers of dried blood. This was Zheng Zijing. When the deceased retains a righteous heart, their soul manifests in the form of their youth. At this very hour, do you know regret? The magistrate of Taizhou, standing before the gasping Zheng Zijing, questioned him with an air of cold superiority. Zheng Zijing raised his head with a tremor, his voice weak yet devoid of fear, his spirit unyielding and his heart focused on his true path. Death 9 times over, yet I harbor no regrets. Death 9 times over, yet no regrets. The magistrate of Taizhou seethed with rage. Do you still not realize your errors even now? Was my own great-great-great-great-great-grandson truly so deserving of death? Zheng Zijing let out a scornful laugh, staring back at him. You pose as a man of justice. Tell me, was he not deserving of death? The law is written clearly. Your questioning of me is entirely unreasonable. City god Thang, consumed by a mix of fury and embarrassment, snatched a whip from the hands of an underworld attendant nearby to strike. With each lash, with each blow, a bloody welt appeared upon the body of Dam Tu-kin. Yet Dam Tu-kin merely offered a scornful laugh. He did not let out a single cry of agony. Though a scholar may lack the strength to slaughter a chicken, he possessed a backbone of iron. Unable to believe he could not break the prisoner, Than Hoang cast the whip aside, preparing to fetch more cruel instruments of torture from nearby. However, at that very moment, the entire underworld began to tremble. What is happening? The city god's expression shifted violently. He looked upward, his gaze seemingly piercing through the roof of the chamber. He stared at the unchanging gloomy sky of the underworld. only to see that within the gray firmament, countless mists were rapidly converging toward a single point, finally manifesting as a colossal vortex. The cyclone swirled, the winds raging wildly in all directions as lightning flashed across the void. What has occurred? The oppressive sensation is suffocating. My very soul feels as though it is about to shatter. This is dire. Someone is causing chaos in the underworld. Countless wandering souls emitted shrill, mournful cries, then collapsed to the ground, trembling. Even the underworld envoys were no exception. The next second, a brilliant moon descended from the center of the giant vortex. The blinding white light shone in all directions with an overwhelmingly tyrannical presence. In this place of eternal night, under the brilliance of this white radiance, countless gloomy structures melted away as rapidly as ice under the sun. It was as if the very earth of this desolate landscape was being eroded by a searing wind. The prison cells that held countless wicked spirits tore like paper, their roofs quickly disintegrating into ash. Who dares to trespass into the underworld? Do you not fear the 6 paths of heavenly law? City god Thon Hoang raised his head and shouted fiercely. Yet the very next moment, he felt as if Mount Tai had crushed down upon him. His knees slammed into the floor, fracturing the stone foundation by several inches. You dare to insult a deity ordained by the underworld? I cannot forgive you. You shall be cast into the 18th level of hell, Thon Hoang screamed maniacally. However, in the following heartbeat, his head exploded, and his entire body shattered from top to bottom, finally dissolving into a heap of dust. The city god was dead. The underworld envoys and the gathered spirits were so terrified that their souls nearly fled their bodies in fright. The city god had been slain without even catching a glimpse of his opponent. What kind of terrifying entity had arrived here today? Would the adversary spare them? At this moment, every soul in the underworld was suppressed upon the ground by the light emanating from the white dog. Aside from Teng Zijing, Wang Zhengsheng slowly retracted the brilliance, which was no longer as blinding as before, rapidly shrinking in size, and finally descended before you, apologizing. I am late. Looking at the youthful Teng Zijing, you whispered, I did not want you to come. Teng Zijing spoke with a complex expression, then reached out his right hand, gently placing it upon your forehead, just as it was by the willow-lined lake 58 years ago, when that high-spirited young man had similarly patted the white dog's head. But I have come, you said softly. Follow me. I know of a place that can evade the pursuit of the underworld and allow your soul to linger in this world, can you not? Teng Zig shook his head. With a gaze both gentle and resolute, he smiled and said, To see you brings me great joy, but I will not go. Why? You frowned. Between heaven and earth, there is an order to yin and yang. I am a scholar. How could I disregard the laws of nature and defy the cycle of existence? Do you know that the soul can be deceived by methods? Teng Zijing's gaze deepened as he smiled and said, Go back, I shall head to the underworld for reincarnation. You must live well, and we shall meet again in the next life. Despite your reluctance, you understood his character all too well. He appeared mild-mannered, but regarding what he held to be righteous, he would never waver. Just as he had once said, where the heart is set, one shall not regret it even if they die 9 times over. Say your goodbyes. Teng Zijing knelt slowly, wrapped his arms around the white dog's neck, and pressed his left cheek against its fur. There was boundless reluctance in his eyes before he closed them, drawing a deep breath as if to etch this scent into his memory, to offer comfort for the thousands of years to come. After a long while, he let go, stood up, and took a step toward the gates of the underworld. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. In this moment, every soul watched this young scholar. Wherever he passed as he advanced, the dark energy surrounding Han Yang surged, gradually coalescing into a long azure robe. His hair was no longer disheveled. It tied itself neatly, and he donned a scholar's cap, finally assuming the refined appearance of a man of letters. You stood frozen in your tracks. Watching him walk away step by step, that elegant young man eventually stopped before the gates of the underworld. He turned toward you, cupped his hands in a respectful bow, and smiled, bidding you to take care. He then turned and stepped through the gates of the underworld, leaving you to stare in a daze at the scene. Only after a long time did you recover, a complex smile appearing in your eyes. You left the Taizhou underworld with complicated emotions, believing he would finally be reincarnated smoothly, yet you did not know that when Teng Zijing stepped into the eternal realm, a trial more cruel than any awaited him. You shielded the perpetrator and attempted to deceive the law. By law, you must be cast into the hall of torture. Do you confess? The cold voice of the judge echoed throughout the abyss. The cold voice of the judge echoed throughout the abyss. You spent your life reading and acting with integrity, never committing an evil deed for your own gain. Yet your desire led you to be cast into the depths of infinite suffering. Time flowed on. 6 years had passed in the mortal realm. The Dongbao dynasty had been established, and times had returned to peace. In this era of great tranquility, in this age of prosperity, the descendants of the Teng family gradually began to stand out. Not only did they inherit the family's legacy of loyalty, but they also displayed extraordinary wisdom. Yet, guided by the reminders of her mother, and under the strict instructions of her mother, she buried her brilliance beneath the guise of a carefree young lady, keeping her true sharpness well concealed. The little girl who once clutched at your leg in tears had grown into an extraordinary woman, adorned in red, possessing a heroic and indomitable spirit. She composed poems praising righteousness, daring to mock men who failed to earn their titles through merit. This arrogant poem shook the entire world, and even startled the Emperor of Dongbao. Yet she captured the Emperor's admiration with her spirit. Not only did she escape death, but her reputation as a woman of immense talent spread across the land. After 16 years of arduous study, she finally fulfilled the promise made years ago. On the banks of the Chunjiang River, at the age of 24, she launched a contest of Tao that shook the world. She intended to use her meager knowledge to suppress all the talents in the land, aiming to secure her seat firmly as one of the two greatest scholars in the world. Yet, upon arriving at the gathering of peers, she disguised herself as a man. On the streets, she encountered an elder with hair as white as snow. The old man showed no mercy as he mocked her actions. He claimed that her half-filled water jar and the clinking sounds she made were merely cheap tricks to seek fame, and that while young she failed to focus on her studies, choosing instead to pursue hollow prestige. Is this all the top scholar in the world amounts to? This statement struck her like a heavy blow, awakening her from her arrogance. She stood frozen for a long while before finally taking a deep breath and ordering her maid to take back the invitation. Gazing toward the distant horizon, she whispered softly, "Grandfather, only in this way will I truly be worthy of your pride." From that day forth, the world lost a scholar obsessed with fame, and gained a female mentor dedicated to true scholarship. 4 years passed. You residing in the ancient village of Yanwu Mountain were now 90 years old, possessing a terrifying 9,000 years of cultivation. That day a light drizzle fell upon the mountain. You slowly opened your eyes. You opened your eyes, then spoke. "A guest has arrived. Go and open the door." The door creaked as it slowly swung open. A middle-aged scholar clad in azure robes, holding an oil paper umbrella, stood amidst the rain. "Princess Danyuan, has nothing untoward occurred?" Princess Danyuan cried out, "Master, you said back then that when the time was right, you would come to find me. Your appearance today, does it mean?" The azure-clad scholar smiled and nodded. "Indeed. I have calculated the heavenly secrets. His time in the underworld has ended, and he has been reincarnated." "Where is he?" "He has been reincarnated. Let us go find him now." "Where is he?" Having waited for 3,000 years, she was now overcome with frantic excitement. Like a moth drawn to a flame, yet the azure-clad scholar fell silent. Like a moth drawn to a flame, she was filled with trepidation. "Master, is something wrong? Has some unforeseen event occurred?" The azure-clad scholar looked at the drizzling sky, his expression carrying a hint of sorrow as he jested. "With this rain falling, should you not invite me inside first?" "Ah, master, please come in, please come in." Despite possessing 3,000 years of cultivation, she blushed with profound embarrassment. At this moment, she flushed with embarrassment. Deep within the mist-shrouded mountains, you sat facing the scholar holding the pipe. He was the master of Lady Hong. 3,000 years ago, he aided the blood-stained map in its conquest. As a peerless master of the world, Qing Shangren sought to reunite his disciple and his wife after their imprisonment ended. He defied the heavens and altered fate, transforming Lady Hong into a ghost cultivator. Within this extreme yin burial ground, he deployed a grand formation to obscure the heavenly secrets. He waited for 3,000 years, 1 year in the mortal realm, 10 years in the netherworld. This 3,000-year wait was the penance his disciple endured for 30,000 years of torment in the underworld. Hearing that this Qinglu Shangren possessed profound knowledge of the heavens and destiny, you approached him, clinging to a glimmer of hope. You handed him the name, past history of Zheng Zijing, and his date of birth, imploring him to divine the location of your old friend. For 10 years you had been unable to sense any trace of his reincarnation. Qinglu Shangren raised his head toward the heavens. His brows twitched as if the stars and the cosmos were unfolding within them. Yet after a long silence, he slowly opened his eyes. With a heavy and sympathetic expression, he uttered 2 words, "The underworld." In this world, there is only one place he cannot divine. The land of 10,000 dusts, the underworld. In that moment, a sharp light emanated from your eyes, and the demonic energy within your body erupted, spiraling out of control. With a thunderous boom, you slammed your massive hand onto the ground. The searing heat instantly melted the solid stone, causing it to shatter into white smoke. Qinglu Shangren furrowed his brows, unable to understand. Based on the destiny of Xingzijing, it was fundamentally impossible for him to have violated the laws of heaven. How could he have fallen into such a state? You gritted your teeth. Your voice trembled, your heart feeling as if it were being flayed. Was he enduring this punishment for your sake? You finally realized the truth. Why did that stubborn old yin master in Taizhou 10 years ago refuse to follow you, even in death? What cannot go against the heavenly principles? What, a gentleman can be deceived? These were all lies told to deceive you. Deep within his bones lay the unwavering persistence of a scholarly official. He knew that by wreaking havoc in the underworld, you could not escape a death sentence. When the laws of heaven descend, someone must bear the burden. Thus, he unhesitatingly chose to take on the heavenly tribulation and the suffering in your stead. Your eyes turned red, and you whispered, swearing to descend, you only took his mortal soul, which was far too weak. You feared he would be unable to endure the endless torture of the underworld, yet Shangren Qinglu ruthlessly shattered your illusions. There was not a shred of a chance. The underworld is governed by yin gods with countless years of cultivation. Even though we are great demons in the human realm with formidable power, in the underworld, we are fundamentally unable to stir up any waves. If you go, you are merely walking straight into a trap. Not only will you fail to save him, but you will also return empty-handed. A sense of helplessness surges like a tide, threatening to drown you. You are filled with resentment. You possess a cultivation speed 100 times faster than others. With just a few hundred more years, it is not impossible for you to shake the foundations of the underworld. However, you can afford to wait. But can he afford to wait? If you wait for a few hundred years, he will have to endure several millennia of agony in the pits of hell. As if seeing through your despair, Shengren Qinglu smiles enigmatically. He points you toward another path, revealing that there exists a heaven-defying fortune in this world that can drastically increase one's cultivation in a short time. Although this shortcut is elusive and often a matter of pure chance, as long as it can be seized, the look in your eyes becomes frantic and desperate. For instance, even if a mountain of blades and a sea of fire lie ahead, because the old man who cared for you went to the underworld in your stead, you are determined to pierce through the very heavens. With a distant gaze, Shangren Qinglu tells you that the hidden realms contain heaven-defying fortunes, such as flowers blooming amidst the clouds, or ruined palaces drifting through the sky, or perhaps a waterfall suddenly flowing in reverse, and silhouettes dancing within the twilight. As long as you witness any one of these miraculous scenes, you will be able to trigger a surge of 10,000 years of cultivation, directly stepping into the ranks of the great demon level. You swallow hard, feeling completely moved. Although your cultivation speed is 100-fold, time in the underworld flows 10 times faster than in the human realm. If you wait a few hundred years, your brother will have suffered several millennia of endless torture within the 18 levels of hell. What kind of suffering must that truly be? You cannot even begin to imagine it, for your good brother endured that suffering in your place, shattering the peaceful days you once expected. For the first time, a fierce craving for power took hold of me. I had to become stronger, and I had to do it quickly. Yet, in the face of the hazy void, all things ultimately rely on fate. Shangren Qinglu shifted the tone of the conversation, revealing a heaven-shaking secret to you. Within the borders of the Yusei Kingdom, a legendary immortal artifact is destined to emerge in the coming years. Anything involving the immortals is bound to bring heaven and earth to turmoil. If you can obtain this immortal artifact, it is not impossible for you to enter the underworld and save your old friend. Though that place is perilous in the extreme, even a 10,000-year-old great demon could perish there. At this moment, the Crimson Lady could no longer contain herself. With a flushed face, she pressed him for answers, for her husband had been waiting for 3,000 years. Where is he, exactly? Shangren Qinglu set aside his jesting, his expression turning solemn. He was born into the sect that was the foundation of the Buddhist path, and he is a man fated to possess the Tathagata heavenly scripture. The Crimson Lady's face changed dramatically, and she was on the verge of tears. She is a spirit being now. Entering the Buddhist ancestral grounds to seize someone is no different from seeking death, yet Shangren Qinglu gave a cold laugh. He had already prepared a plan. The man is currently traveling east with an old monk toward the ancestral grounds of the great Xia dynasty's Taoist sect to attend the Tao Buddha Dharma assembly. The Taoist and Buddhist schools have long been locked in secret competition. If we take action on Taoist territory against one who holds a connection to the Buddhist heavenly scripture, the Taoists will not only welcome it, they may even secretly assist us. The Crimson Lady wept uncontrollably, overflowing with joy as she kneaded the master's shoulders. Watching the heartwarming scene before you, you could not help but smile, subconsciously recalling Zheng Zijing. In those years, he too sat in a chair just like this, enjoying the clumsy kneading of his son, Zheng Gengjin. He laughed and said to his son Gengshen, I have had someone calculate your fortune. Your life may lack grand achievements, but you are good at kneading shoulders, so when you grow up, you will surely find a good wife. You can even go and knead Uncle Bai's shoulders. Little Gengshen obediently walked behind you, but suddenly cried out, But father, Uncle Bai has no shoulders. That old man, whom you protected within the family, has now grown up. You must wait for me in the underworld. Even if I must defy the gods and Buddhas of heaven, I will certainly come to bring you home. In the great Xia dynasty, beside a small stream outside a remote village, a young monk dressed in gray robes held a bowl of porridge, running happily toward the shade of a tree. and offered it to the old monk, who sat in deep meditation. The young monk drank the remaining bowl of porridge from his master, a smile as pure as a sun-drenched rippling stream blooming upon his face. Sitting beneath the scholar tree, the female ghost in red watched this scene in silence. A tender smile flickered within her melancholic gaze. The husband she had awaited for 3,000 years, once a man of ruthless slaughter, was now merely a carefree young monk. Ascendant Qinglu whispered, "I shall go distract the old monk. You go and identify him." Madam, Red withdrew her smile, her expression complex as she shook her head. "There is no need. He lives a truly happy life in this lifetime. I have never seen him wear such a genuine innocent smile. It is better not to disturb him." She turned away quietly, vanishing into the distance. Ascendant Qinglu let out a sigh. Perhaps we can only wait until he achieves mastery of the Tathagata heavenly scripture, obtains great fortune, and ascends to become an immortal or Buddha, before he recalls his past life and makes his own choice. Meanwhile, by the stream, the old monk looked toward the scholar tree, a knowing smile playing on his lips. Fate arises and fate dissipates. It all follows a predestined path. The narrative shifts to you, listening to the words of Ascendant Qinglu within this small nation, waiting for 10 years, yet the celestial aura has yet to manifest. But you dare not depart a single step, because aside from you, countless great demons and human cultivators remain here as well. Amidst this tense atmosphere, enduring the wait for these 10 years. Though you live in seclusion, you frequently hear news from the eastern reports. Tong Zijing's granddaughter, Tong Qingqing, having abandoned the Asking Dao Academy to focus solely on her studies, is now an unquestioned genius, famous far and wide. As for that old man, Tong Jingshen, he is 60 years old, yet continues to take in concubines, for you know he fears Tong Qing will never marry and leave his lineage without heirs, resorting to his own methods of seeking progeny. What gives you the most comfort, however, is Tong Yushu, the son of Zhou Wei's. 5 years ago, when the new emperor of the Dongting kingdom ascended the throne and besieged the Dongbao kingdom, the young Marcus, who had bided his time for many years, finally stepped forward, displaying exceptional martial prowess and military talent, and in little more than a year, he became the commander of a Dongbao kingdom legion. Turning the tide, the Dongding kingdom retreated, pledging not to invade for 100 years. Shu Hoitak became a national hero. Some even whispered in the shadows, urging him to rebel and claim the throne. But he could not forget the words of your criticism from that year, nor the advice given by his grandfather, Tong Tu Kin. When a kingdom rises, the people suffer. To spark a rebellion for mere personal gain would shift the fate of the dynasty, yet it is the common people who would ultimately bear the misery. He courageously stepped back, voluntarily relinquishing his military power. The emperor of Dongbao, in his delight, bestowed upon him the title of first rank Duke of Loyalty and Righteousness. With a hereditary title, he not only transformed all of Xuanzhang into his own territory, but the emperor even personally wrote a record of his deeds, immortalizing the legend of the Duke of Loyalty and Righteousness. This was the emperor's public strategy, yet it was also the finest harmony between a monarch and his subject, a child who obediently listens to his grandfather's teachings. Now, with both wealth and time at his disposal, his reputation would endure for generations, and he lived more comfortably than the emperor in the palace. But on this day, the sky above the town where you lived in seclusion suddenly erupted with a rumble of thunder. Small, dark, and menacing clouds gathered with great intensity above your head. You looked up at the thunderclouds, realizing that 100 years had passed. You, like a great demon of immense 1,000-year-old cultivation, had finally arrived at your first centennial heavenly tribulation. A gale shrieked through the air, blowing away the laundry hanging out to dry. A pair of trousers landed on a young man's face. He pulled it off, shouting, "Which fellow Taoist is undergoing their tribulation here?" But he was quickly dragged away by others. "What fellow Taoist?" "That is a demon." In the air, streaks of searing lightning struck down in rapid succession. Yet you, a great demon possessing terrifying 1,000-year-old cultivation, lay there lazily. You closed your eyes, savoring the rare cooling sensation of the lightning. Apply a bit more strength. This girl is a bit clumsy. Is this your first time doing this? Despite being washed over by the lightning, not even a single hair on your body was singed. The heavenly tribulation seemed enraged, striking down with all its might, yet it remained completely ineffective. In the end, it had to submit to your absolute power. The great demon king could only dissipate like a light, resentful drizzle. After overcoming this first century-long heavenly tribulation, you finally refined the bones within your body, no longer needing to rely on soul transmission for communication. You can truly speak with a human voice. Are you thirsty, old man? Quickly, drink some tea to soothe your throat. The 1,000-year-old monster you subdued, standing over 2 meters tall, is Zhang Wanli, the black bear. He approached you with a fawning expression. You opened your mouth, and the tea transformed into a stream, flowing directly into it. Zhang'er, your tea brewing skills have improved. It finally no longer smells of urine. It seems you have finally washed your hands this time. The fool coughed twice and scratched his head. Master, it was brewed by my younger sister. 100 years ago, I saved a green fox being hunted down. Seeing how ugly she was, I felt pity and took her in as my younger sister. You raised an eyebrow. Ugly was an understatement. You looked at his coarse, rugged appearance and asked him how he perceived himself. Zhang Wanli held his head high. Naturally, I am handsome and extraordinary, unrivaled in this world. You nodded, lost in thought. Given the bizarre aesthetic standards of this fool, what he considers ugly must surely be a peerless beauty. Naturally, you did not press the matter further. There was no reason to interrogate him, just because he possessed a beautiful sister. They called for you to take a look. Aha, so you are here, I have finally found you. At this moment, an old man carrying an iron banner, muttering to himself, entered with disheveled hair. His eyes were bruised from being beaten, yet he circled around you, offering praise. And I see that you possess a unique skeletal structure. You have the appearance of a peerless immortal. Why not take me as your master? I shall teach you the Hunyuan technique, and you shall achieve the Nirvana golden body, eternal and indestructible. With a single glance, you recognized him as a great demon who had lived for 9,900 years, a master at deceiving others. This would be considered a powerhouse, but in front of you, a legendary ancient demon, he was not even worth glancing at. You shake your head lightly, signaling Zhang Wan to escort him out. Zhang Wanli impatiently grabs him and tosses him out into the courtyard. With such raw strength, he dismisses the man's arrogant claims of being invincible and indestructible, even against the heavenly tribulation. Watching his retreating figure, you narrow your eyes, reflecting on the mysteries of the world. It is unpredictable. Perhaps he truly is a hidden expert, and to verify this, your eyes flash as you employ a minor technique, a test to see if he is merely a nuisance. You chuckle, feeling a strange sense of relief when he does not attempt to dodge. It seems he is not a high-level expert after all. You feel as though you have missed out on a blind box that another has already claimed. Seeing that there is nothing of value within, you are finally able to sleep soundly. Time passes in tranquility and 10 years have already slipped by. During these 10 years, you have been frantically excavating within your mental realm every single day. You have dug the tunnel leading to the origin of the human race's fortune, more than 100 meters deep. Blood-red, baleful energy now leaks from the cracks in the rock, flowing in streams the size of a little finger. With this power unleashed, you can now easily suppress demon monsters that have lived for 500 years. Beyond your boundless demonic energy, you have cultivated a body of blood-killing bronze, capable of countering 10,000 techniques. Even if your demonic energy were to be completely exhausted one day, you would still have a trump card. You even anticipate the day you reach the very depths of this blood-baleful energy, obtaining power that knows no end. However, on this day, on a desolate mountain in Huao, clouds of fire suddenly emerge, blanketing the sky as if a heavenly conflagration were descending upon the world. A terrifying invisible fluctuation ripples outward instantaneously. All of Huao, and even the surrounding nations, are shaken violently by this immense and crushing pressure. You suddenly open your eyes, staring toward the distant horizon. You see an illusory world floating amidst the encroaching fire clouds, and deep within that world, a blood-colored longsword drifts silently, radiating infinite killing intent. A celestial artifact has manifested. Having waited for decades, your eyes erupt with a flicker of intense excitement. Brilliant silver light swirls around you, and with a single step, your figure vanishes in an instant. Your faint voice echoes from the void, reverberating throughout the courtyard. A great upheaval is coming to the Huao kingdom. All of you, flee at once and do not wander about, for the old man is still suffering in the 18th level of the underworld. This sword has the power to shake the netherworld. It is a peerless celestial artifact that you must obtain. On the desolate mountain of Hu, the fire clouds swirl with violent intensity. In the depths of those clouds, and the legendary blood-red immortal sword has finally appeared within a radius of hundreds of miles. Countless demons and monsters watch with burning eyes as rolling black clouds gather and descend upon the earth. A pack of mere demons dares to lay hands on an immortal artifact? A cold voice echoes across the 9 heavens. A brilliant shooting star tears through the sky, cleaving the boundless black clouds in two, like an ocean being forced to reverse its course. The newcomer is a cold man clad in yin-yang Taoist robes. He stands with his hands behind his back, looking down upon the world. He gazes down at the myriad of demons with unmatched arrogance. You are but minor demonic beasts. I shall give you 3 breaths of time. Vanish from my sight or face death. Along with his icy ultimatum, 2 massive yin-yang fish emerge around him, his terrifying aura erupting like a giant looking down upon the heavens and the earth. With 10,000 years of cultivation, he is the one destined to possess the human race's heavenly scroll. The great demon lord has arrived. Countless lesser demons are so terrified their very hearts tremble, and they flee in a frenzy. Yet a dozen colossal black clouds remain in the sky. Eagles that blot out the sun, figures resembling giant fish, beasts with wings that are massive serpents, butterflies radiating five-colored light, and nine-headed lions roaring in madness. These dozen great demon lords, each with over 8,000 years of cultivation, rarely meet, yet they stand on the same front today. They roar. If we let you obtain the immortal artifact, will there even be a place left for the demon race to breathe? Today, even if not for the artifact, we must carve out a path of survival for the sake of our descendants. Human cultivators have always been overbearing. Even if we demons are stained with the blood of the wicked, we shall not seek our own destruction. The man in the Taoist robes finishes speaking and raises his hands high, a Taiji diagram covering the heavens and the earth, instantly sealing off the entire sky. With a thunderous roar of divine retribution, countless terrifying bolts of lightning descend from the Taiji diagram. The dozen great demon lords, despite possessing diverse divine abilities, struggle to the death. Yet they are crushed beneath the absolute dominance of 10,000 years of cultivation. On the spot, flesh and blood spray in all directions, shattered bones fly outward, and they are pierced by the lightning, their bodies covered in grievous wounds, trapped tightly within the sealed space. Falling into endless despair, they cry out, "I am not reconciled to this." It be that our demon race truly lacks a supreme powerhouse? Is even a demon now reduced to being bullied by others? As the demons roared, the man in the Taoist robe let out a cold, mocking laugh. Even if the demon race possesses mighty experts, would any dare to appear before the inheritor of 10,000 years of history? But in the very next moment, the entire world seemed as if it had been plunged into stillness. The frenzied streaks of lightning suddenly ground to a halt. The man in the Taoist robe suddenly looked up, discovering with alarm that everything, as if having weathered 10,000 years of wind and rain, suddenly faded away and disintegrated, vanishing into ash. It happened before the eyes of every despairing demon. A miraculous white dog, elegant and untouched by even a speck of dust, shattered the void and appeared in the sky. Divine light radiated from all around you, like a bright moon hanging high above. In an instant, unblemished and pure, the miraculous white dog shattered the void and appeared in the sky. Divine light radiated from all around you, like a bright moon hanging high. In a fleeting moment, the terrifying demonic power within your body was beyond description, like a vast ocean bursting its banks, thunderously flooding the entire heavens and earth. Haha, this is the true expert of our demon race. The dozen peerless great demons, who had been on the brink of death, watched you descend with the supreme aura of a radiant moon, and moved to tears, they knelt in worship. Having long been suppressed by the human experts, they finally felt the joy of having someone to champion their cause. Senior, suppress this man and restore the prestige of our demon race. The great demons behind you roared in excitement. But you only cast a cold, indifferent glance in their direction, and softly uttered a single word, "Leave." The dozen peerless great demons were instantly silenced. Trembling in fear, they scrambled and fled in a panicked retreat. Saving them was merely a casual act for you. You have never considered yourself a senior of the demon race. You are a solitary existence who kills humans and demons alike. You topple dynasties and destroy Buddhas, acting solely by the standard held within your own heart. At this moment, the arrogance on the face of the Taoist-robed man had long since stiffened, replaced by awkwardness and a dark, brooding look. He stared intently at you and shouted, "What kind of demon are you? Do not act presumptuously before me. I give you 3 breaths to vanish, or you shall lose 10,000 years of cultivation in an instant." Your gaze remained unmoved. "Move aside, do not block my path." You stepped upon the void, advancing toward him with each stride, and with every footfall, white ripples surged across the sky, instantly transforming into rolling, turbulent waves, sweeping in all directions as the very heavens and earth changed color. Resolute and unyielding, the man in the Taoist robe was consumed by fury, murderous intent roiling between his brows. He abruptly raised both hands, let out a sharp cry, and moved the mountains to fill the seas. Boom. 2 mountains, thousands of feet tall, were ripped from the earth and hurled down with ferocity. Yet you dismissed this as a child's game. You stomped your claw into the void, your body instantly expanding with terrifying force. With veins bulging, you transformed into a towering prehistoric beast, your head colliding directly with the 2 peaks, shattering them instantly, and in a blink your colossal claws emanated a divine light, as if you were wielding a bright moon to strike him down. The expression of the man in the Taoist robe shifted drastically. He frantically unleashed his movement techniques, retreating thousands of meters, yet he was still struck by the shockwave of your single claw swipe. He vomited fresh blood, flying back hundreds of meters before barely managing to steady himself. His eyes were filled with malice and madness as he roared, unleashing his absolute killing move, the heaven-opening yin-yang strike. From the 9 heavens, 2 currents of yin and yang, black and one white, descended with a deafening roar, converging into a gargantuan yin-yang greatsword, carrying a peerless sharpness capable of cleaving yin and yang, tearing through light and darkness as it descended to strike you. Facing this world-annihilating technique, you abruptly raised your head, your eyes flashing with blinding silver light in an instant. Time became a blade. Wherever that silver light swept, everything in the world turned into a monochrome of black and white. The arrogant yin-yang greatsword seemed to endure 10,000 years of erosion in an instant, covered in cracks before you shattered it with a single swipe. Not only that, you take a single step, and within that mere stride, you appear directly before him. The colossal claw strikes down once more. "Get out of my way." He frantically unleashes the yin-yang gourd in a desperate attempt to defend himself, but the shockwave forces him to spew blood, driving him into a state of absolute madness. With hands forming seals, the void fire dragon emerges. A ferocious dragon of flame roars from the gourd, expanding in the wind until it matches your size. The terrifying temperature causes the ground to turn crimson and fracture. The light of the creature stains the vast sky red, while a flash of contempt flickers in your eyes. You open your maw, unleashing the aura of the devourer of mountains and rivers, and with a single gulp, the arrogant fire dragon is swallowed. Pulled deep into your belly, you exhale flames from your 7 orifices, transforming into a gigantic alchemical furnace. With a cold sneer, you declare, "Once you have entered my stomach, do you truly think you can turn the heavens? I shall refine you." Midst the desperate, wretched screams of the man in the Taoist robe, you not only completely refine his fire dragon, but you also undergo a shocking, world-shaking transformation. Your form becomes balanced and elongated, brimming with explosive power. Pale white scales emerge upon your neck, and your tail manifests into drifting streams of light. At this moment, your divine power is vast and ethereal. You refined my fire dragon, and you even evolved. The Taoist man's eyes turn blood red, and in his fury he vomits more blood. Realizing he is no match for you, he leaves behind a final venomous threat. Just you wait. Surrounded by brilliant silver light, he makes a hasty retreat. You strike the air with one hand, slamming it into the ground to create a terrifying bottomless abyss hundreds of meters deep. With no one left to disturb you, you retract your colossal form and look up at the blood-colored immortal sword within the mysterious world. For the sake of the Sutra of the Dead, and to open the gates of the underworld, transform into a beam of righteous light, charging headlong into the unknown secret realm. You pierce through the barriers of the mysterious world, only to be greeted by a deathly aura that would drive even the gods and demons to despair. Beneath your feet lies a roiling sea of fire, designed to suppress all evil magic and spirits, while above you a surging, roaring, killing intent fills the void, encroaching upon the soul, a dual assault of ice and fire that spans the heavens. To force your way through would mean that even a great demon of 10,000 years would see their entire cultivation base vanish within 2 hours. With your bones at risk of being reduced to nothingness, will you retreat? The celestial blood sword could save Zheng Zijing from the 18 layers of hell, yet it remained across the sea, and in that moment between life and death you refused to yield. With a sudden flicker of movement, you summoned the amber-colored stones extracted from the mines within your mind, crushing them down and compressing them into a thick, muddy membrane, sealing your entire body within this protective layer. You closed your eyes and ceased your breathing, enduring the burning sensation as if scorched by blades. Within this forbidden divine realm, it felt as though you were carrying a great mountain while moving, struggling to endure for half a year. When you arrived at the edge, completely exhausted, before you lay an island being consumed by endless void, and the legendary celestial blood sword was hovering in its center. Upon seeing you, it erupted with a joyful hum of steel. Finally, someone had arrived. "Take me away from this hellish place before it collapses." You remained vigilant as you allowed it to acknowledge you as its master. Without hesitation, it expelled a stream of blood-red light, merging into your body. The connection felt like a bond of blood, visceral and undeniable. It impatiently demanded the secret technique you used to traverse the sea of suffering. Knowing well that one must always guard against others, you realized this secret was far beyond its station and absolutely could not be revealed. You coldly refused, pulled it into your dantian, and turned to leave. Behind you, an invisible, colossal force devoured the remnants of the celestial islands. Even the towering dharmic manifestations of ancient gods and Buddhas let out wails that shook the very heavens. Reduced to ash and smoke, you dared not look back. And after struggling for another half a year, you finally shattered the final barrier, returning to the mortal world where the cool air washed over you, and you gasped for breath. You frantically devoured the spiritual energy within a radius of 100 miles, your internal cultivation technique swallowing the heavens and the earth, manifesting as a great vortex, causing the surrounding great demons and cultivators to flee in terror. But just as you thought you could finally bring Zheng Zijing home, a stream of blood-red light erupted violently from within your body. The celestial blood sword swelled in size, towering and earth-shattering, and a streak of blood instantly tore through the clouds and wind. "Haha, I have finally escaped. Now that there are no immortals or Buddhas left in this world, who can possibly oppose me?" The frenzied, unbridled laughter, fueled by a terrifying ambition to dominate the world, echoed across the heavens and earth, and your heart instantly plunged into an icy abyss. You finally understood. If a celestial artifact is powerful enough to be unconquerable, why would it ever truly submit to being your slave? The so-called blood oath of master servant was, from beginning to end, merely a trap to trick you into carrying it across the sea. Without a moment's hesitation, you decisively unleashed your divine ability, and with a single step you vanished into a rift in space, fleeing into the face of death. Haha, my master, where do you intend to go? A cold, chilling laugh echoed from the void. A surge of blood-red light tore through the spatial barriers with violent force. You tumbled out of the void, falling heavily to the ground. A grievous wound opened along your flank, blood flowing profusely, drenching your snow-white fur in a crimson stain. You glared at him with cold detachment, your heart heavy with a sense of helplessness. The blood-immortal sword transformed into a beam of crimson light, manifesting as an arrogant man dressed in scarlet robes. A blood-sword mark shimmered upon his forehead. His eyes were filled with disdain, and the aura radiating from him was so terrifying it seemed as if it could rend the heavens and earth asunder. He looked down at your grave injuries and smiled cruelly. I would not have preferred this. If you were merely an ordinary being, perhaps I would have spared your life, but you possess a unique power, a world-shaking secret regarding how you crossed those two seas. This secret is so immense that even I cannot help but be moved by it. Faced with this insurmountable malice, you gritted your teeth in agony. To survive, this battle had become inevitable. So you truly have no intention of sparing me today? You asked in a low, grim voice. Your wound, now festering under the suppression of his terrifying immortal sword chi, bled incessantly, refusing to knit back together. The blood-immortal sword gave a strange, mocking laugh. Once an offense is given, one must cut the weeds and dig up the roots. I offer you one last chance. Choose a path to death that you find more comfortable. Your heart turned cold. Even in death, you refuse to perish in such a humiliating manner. You are a demonic beast who has lived for 10,000 years. You must die in the heat of battle. You unleashed a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering roar, your body instantly expanding, standing as tall as the mountains and skies. And with claws as massive as mountain peaks, you struck down at him with the force of a crescent moon. The forbidden art of the frost. He chuckled softly and extended a single finger. With a thunderous blast, the moon in the sky shattered into nothingness. Your colossal body was sent flying backward like a meteor, your blood spilling forth like a cascading waterfall. Between life and death, in a single fleeting moment, a brilliant silver light erupted from your eyes. As the power of time surged forth, causing the... Taking advantage of the moment the temporal barrier flickered, you desperately channeled the essence of heaven and earth, fleeing into the chaotic void, dragging your body, which was nearly torn asunder, and running for your life through the nothingness, using demonic energy to seal your grievous wounds. But at that very instant, crimson lightning flashed in the heavens, and the silhouette of a figure in blood-stained robes descended, a distorted demonic presence that bore down upon you with suffocating pressure. Before absolute power, your struggle was naught but futility. A withered, grotesque hand lunged toward you. You closed your eyes, an ocean of despair rising within your heart. It is over. Yet in that moment, in this situation, hanging by a thread from the depths of the chaotic void, a colossal ethereal hand suddenly emerged, heaven shaking in its magnitude, striking out as if swatting an insect, meeting the threat without the slightest hesitation. The peerless, arrogant, immortal sword was struck aside. Repaying kindness with vengeance, are you still not satisfied? Begone. A chilling voice echoed through the void, and the blood-colored immortal sword, capable of rending the heavens and earth, was effortlessly repelled by this invisible force. Whither did it go? You stared in astonishment as the ethereal hand retracted, drawing a deep breath. Truly, there are hidden experts in this world. At that moment, a feeling of extreme weakness flooded your entire body. Unable to maintain your divine abilities any longer, you plummeted from the sky like a fallen celestial star, crashing violently into a mortal town and carving out a deep crater, sending billows of dust and debris swirling into the air. Passers-by on the street screamed in terror, fleeing in a frantic panic. Yet amidst the chaos, you spotted a disheveled little girl. She opened her wide eyes and gazed at you with curiosity. She did not even flee. Enduring your agony, you approached and asked why she was not afraid. With childlike innocence, she pointed to her deformed legs. Because I cannot run. My uncle broke them, she said. They said that if I were like this, I could earn more money, and then I would have food to eat. You looked upon her grotesquely broken limbs, and a flash of cold, murderous intent ignited in your eyes. To think such vile cruelty exists in this world. With a complex gaze, you pondered for a moment before speaking. Follow me from this day forth, and you shall never go hungry. She tilted her head, looking at you with a mixture of anticipation and worry. Will there be vegetables? Will there be meat? We have some. I will go with you. Her legs had been broken by those people, and her bowl contained only a few leftover vegetable leaves. Now that you spoke of having meat to eat, she risked her life to follow you. You sighed, using your divine power to gently lift her frail body and place it upon your broad back. Although you were heavily wounded and weak, as a 10,000-year-old great demon, carrying a young girl was as effortless as lifting a feather. You, the great white hound, know how to transform. She cheered with joy. You endured your pain and corrected her, stating she must call you master from now on. Master? The little girl nodded obediently. You carried her as if she were the last remaining lifeline in this world. Amidst the twilight, slowly moving into the distance, you led the young girl to settle in a desolate town in a foreign land. You occupied a space? Living in a villa whose owner was a 1,000-year-old great demon living in seclusion from the mortal world, you needed only to offer one sentence of guidance to leave this great demon overjoyed. He knelt down in absolute submission, becoming a servant who brought wealth to your household for 50 years. In the world of demons, to be able to follow and receive teachings from an unfathomably powerful senior was a blessing he could only have earned after 10 lifetimes of cultivation. Time passed swiftly. 20 years flickered by, and in these 20 years, over the past 2 decades, you lived in seclusion, while the sword chi left behind by the blood-colored immortal sword, which contained immense immortal and Buddhist power, fundamentally entrenched itself within your internal organs. Every day you used the cold, metallic killing intent within your marrow to madly cleanse it, yet you could only recover from your external wounds. You were always forced to expend at least half of your strength, just to suppress the backlash of that immortal energy. But even in such a battered state, you now possess 13,000 years of cultivation, and are absolutely not weaker than any other great demon in this world. Master, the female scholar of the Dongbao Kingdom, Ting Ching Ching, has sent over her latest work again. The once bedraggled beggar girl has blossomed into a graceful and vibrant young woman, bearing a striking resemblance to Deng Qingcheng in her youth. For the past 20 years, you have raised her as if she were your own daughter. Sun Wuling rushes toward you, holding a book, and kneels before you with palpable excitement. Master, this book is titled 100 Works of Transmitted Hearts, and the protagonist shares your name. You appear to be sleeping in the courtyard, but in truth you are cultivating to heal your wounds. Hearing her voice, you open your eyes, a gentle smile appearing within your deep, unfathomable gaze. What does this book tell of? You ask, with a faint smile. The girl excitedly begins to recount the tale to you. It tells the story of a spirit beast named Baze. In his youth, he lived in mutual reliance alongside Master Deng. During the final years of Master Deng's life, he repelled demons across 10,000 leagues, bringing forth a 3-day downpour to guide millions of souls, even forcing the waters of the Spring River to fear crossing the Liji boundary by even half a step. Upon its release, the world was shaken, leaving countless scholars in awe. Looking at the young girl with her blushing face, you wear a smile that is neither quite a smile nor a frown. Tell me, did you read this book with that young blacksmith by the riverbank? SC hangs her head in embarrassment, her voice as faint as a mosquito's hum. As a man grows, he takes a wife. As a woman grows, she must marry. It is time for you to be wed, you say with a chuckle, and upon hearing your words, she instinctively lets out a cry of surprise. But immediately tears well up in her eyes, her face filled with both shame and heartache. Master, I cannot bear to leave you. Years ago she was solitary and had nowhere to turn, yet it was you who gave her a warm home, allowing her to live the life of a young lady. She cannot bear the thought of abandoning you, the one who raised her, for the sake of love. You look at this sensible young woman, setting aside your jest, your expression turning profoundly compassionate. I have observed that young man carefully. Though he is but a simple blacksmith with no grand future ahead, he possesses a kind and virtuous heart. He is a man to whom one can entrust their life. Tell him to bring several caddies of wine and come sit with me. You spoke softly to Sun Yuling, explaining that you, a humble boy from the blacksmith shop, had long ago seen through her true nature as a demon. Observing the look of astonishment on Sun Yuling's face, you curled your lips into a knowing smile and continued. That naive young man, when he first discovered that you were a great demon who had lived for 1,000 years, he was so terrified his legs went weak. He fled in a panic, even intending to report you to the magistrate that very night, desperate to summon a powerful cultivator to exorcise the demon. But once his terror subsided, his final decision was made on a night so dark you could not see your own hand before your face. When the initial panic faded, his resolution became firm in the absolute darkness of the night. Clutching a rusted pig-slaughtering knife, he climbed over the high wall of our home. His limbs trembled, and cold sweat soaked his clothes, yet he was determined to save the woman he loved. Emerging from this demon's lair, that cowherd of humble origins, always using his clumsy yet incredibly courageous ways, bore every fear for the sake of the girl he loved. He swallowed his fear whole, simply to maintain the peace within her eyes. Sun Yuling listened, tears streaming down her face. 3 days later, that same young man arrived in an old ox cart, adorned with a red embroidered ball, to propose marriage. He took the savings he had accumulated over many years to purchase a jar of aged daughter wine, worth 10 taels of silver. As he entered the courtyard, facing your formidable, majestic white hound, along with two demonic beings of immeasurable power standing behind you, he was so terrified that his words became a tangled mess, unable to speak a coherent sentence, yet he stood firm, protecting that wine jar, as if he were defending her entire honor and their love. On the day of their wedding, Yu had lived for over 10,000 years, became intoxicated for the first time. A lifespan too long, witnessing too many reunions and partings. Sometimes, living for an eternity means bearing endless sorrow in the vicissitudes of fate. You intended to drown your melancholy in wine, but amidst the noisy open-air banquet, you sensed the filthiest of intentions. The human traffickers who had once broken Sun Yuling's legs, forcing her to beg on the streets, had infiltrated the crowd to feast. Not only did they recognize the bride as their former golden cow, but after gorging themselves on food and drink, they stared greedily at the dog, sleeping under the willow tree, convinced that if they sold it, they would surely fetch a sky-high price. They covered their faces, and clutching a sack, stealthily crept toward you, their entire bodies trembling with nervous anticipation. Yet, those shallow creatures had no idea what they were attempting to touch. They did not realize they were approaching a terrifying taboo, a presence so formidable that you did not even bother to lift your eyelids. Not even their breathing pattern faltered, as the calamitous power belonging to the demons transformed into thick black mists that silently coiled around them. In the very next moment, these evildoers were like stones ensnared by moss, dragged straight into the pale green spring river beside them, without a struggle, without a splash, and without even a single ripple breaking the surface. They drifted silently, suffocating in their final moments of despair. The banquet continued with laughter and conversation. No one knew that several souls had descended into the underworld on this day of celebration. 2 years later, on a stormy night, the child of Yubu and Song Yuling was born. The child's first cry pierced through the rolling thunder in the sky and reached deep into the stone crevice beneath the courtyard eaves. Miraculously, a sprout pierced through the earth, growing at a speed visible to the naked eye, and in a mere moment, it had blanketed the drying rack, blossoming into a flower that radiated a brilliant golden light. On the leaves of the vine, there were faint, shimmering golden patterns, much like swimming frogs. Do you behold this sight? With a profound gaze, one realizes it is the great Tao of the heavenly scripture, born alongside the fated one. The boy was named Yu, affectionately called the Little Prince. He was destined to be born for this glorious great Tao. Time passed swiftly, and in the blink of an eye, 10 years had gone by. The 10-year-old boy displayed wonders far beyond those of ordinary mortals. The water demons who had once abducted the human traffickers, the same water spirits that haunted the river, sought to drag the little prince into the depths to serve as their replacement. Standing by the willow-draped riverbank, the little prince wore the most radiant smile a child could possess. A few uncles. My mother said she would be forever grateful. Because of the great virtue you showed in the past, I have come to bestow a few gifts upon you. He withdrew several golden leaves from his robes, plucked from the heavenly scripture vine at his doorstep, and tossed them gently onto the river's surface. I curse your ancestors to the 8th generation. May you suffer a wretched end. Amidst the desperate, mournful curses of the water demons, the golden leaves erupted into flames the moment they touched the water. The entire river instantly surged with brilliant golden fire, illuminating half the sky. The light of the great Tao shone upon the place, and the demons were no more. Those wicked spirits, once human traffickers, were completely reduced to ashes within the supreme power of the great Tao. Their very right to reincarnation stripped away forever. The young prince rushed into his mother's embrace, his eyes clear and resolute. Mother, they are not men, they are beasts. I am not a heartless soul. I hold both kindness and malice within me, and I shall distinguish between the virtuous and the wicked. The blacksmith, once a man of heavy, sturdy build, stood with his slaughtering blade in hand, watching his wife and children appear before him. His smile as steady as a mountain. The spine of a mortal can indeed hold up the heavens, yet the passage of mortal time is always accompanied by blood and fire. Just as you had foreseen years ago, the fate of the Yulan dynasty has reached its end. Above the imperial armory, 2 koi fish swam in conflict, the forces of yin and yang clashing, and the fires of war erupted with a deafening roar. Insurgent armies rose and warlords engaged in chaotic battles. This war raged for 10 long years, shattering the mountains and rivers, with corpses strewn across the wilderness, and 9 out of 10 households left hollow. Where the war passed, not a single blade of grass would grow. The collapse of civilization left the mortal realm within the prefecture's borders more fragile than ever before. Thus, a demonic catastrophe descended, and countless malicious spirits hiding in the deep forests emerged to slaughter villages en masse, raising towns with roiling demonic energy, even beginning to extinguish the final sparks of humanity's mortal fire. You stood amidst the clouds, looking down upon this suffering world, until a cold, surging fury ignited within your eyes. You had never believed that demonic entities should consume human flesh to cultivate. These marauding demons had shattered the fundamental laws of heaven and earth. Hovering in the air, you let out a roar that shattered the very clouds in the sky, and as your blood-red eyes opened, a power of indescribable terror erupted in an instant, rippling out from you as the epicenter, instantly enveloping the entire territory of the Yulan dynasty. Within the borders of the dynasty, hundreds of thousands of demons wreaking havoc, regardless of their cultivation level, all turned bloodshot in the same moment. They discovered in panic that their bodies, and even their consciousness, were beyond their control, for you reigned over the world like a god, violently seizing possession of their physical forms. Those demons who had committed the most heinous crimes were instantly detonated by your will. Their bodies and souls were annihilated. Those who had committed lesser evils were struck with such terror by your presence that they bowed their heads and fled back to their lairs, never daring to show themselves again. In a single day, the demonic scourge within the borders of the Moonwheel state had finally been quelled. The mortal fires dimmed, and finally 12 years later, a sigh of relief was breathed as the Great Saint Dynasty was established, with the Golden Dragon of Destiny gathering above the Imperial City. The mortal fires of the human race blazed once more, illuminating the firmament and coalescing at the founding of the Great Saint Dynasty. The mortal fires across the entirety of the Great Saint Dynasty even transformed into a colossal torch piercing the heavens. At the peak of this ancestral torch, a flame of the purest gratitude flew straight into your mind. The mysterious orb hidden deep within your consciousness began to glow once more, and even forged a second mineral vein within your spiritual world, an endless vein of ore belonging to the mortal fires of the human race. You cursed in your heart, railing against how arrogant this orb truly was. It was not enough that it absorbed the blood-soaked aura of the army. It even dared to pilfer the mortal fires of humanity. Though you cursed as a pragmatist at heart, you calmly partitioned a portion of your primordial spirit, transforming it into diamond-hard claws. Thus began a life of endless mining, day and night, where time held no meaning within the depths of the mine. When a sudden intuition caused you to withdraw your consciousness from your mind, you saw Nu Shi, now grown, kneeling heavily before you with bloodshot eyes. Grandfather, my parents have passed on. You were stunned for a moment, a flash of unconcealable loneliness crossing your eyes before you stood up. With a broad hand, you gently patted Nu Shi's shoulder. Birth, aging, sickness, and death are all governed by fate. You must find peace within. A few days later, 2 new graves appeared by the riverbank. The kind-hearted fisherman, Nu Shi, whom you cherished like a granddaughter, could ultimately not defy the natural lifespan of a mortal, sinking into the cold earth. Before her parents' graves, Nu Shi bowed several times, wiped away her tears, her gaze becoming incredibly resolute as she returned to the courtyard. She walked toward the vine that had accompanied her for decades. As she approached, the withered vine pulsed, and the purple vase erupted with divine light, draining all the golden veins. Then, Father, Uncle Gong, I am leaving now. Nu Shi bowed to you, and the stone spirit Song Yan, before transforming into a streak of light that soared into the sky, vanishing toward the eastern horizon. You watched her depart in silence. You had long known that she was born to pursue the great Tao, and it was only out of filial piety that she had wasted decades in this remote town. Now that all constraints had been severed, he was like an eagle spreading its wings, finally setting out to conquer the vast sky that awaited him. Time continued to flow without mercy. During this period, the great black bear brought his younger sister to White Crane Mountain. Shen Fuanli, with his peculiar sense of taste, constantly complained about how ugly this younger sister was. But when you actually met her, you realized that the great black bear, Wanli, had brought Han's sister to White Crane Mountain. Shen Wanli, with that bizarre aesthetic sense of his, would always complain to you about how unsightly she was. Yet when you truly laid eyes on her, you discovered that the girl, named Shui Yur, was clearly a refined beauty, ethereal, gentle, and stunningly beautiful. The way she looked at you always held the tiny shimmering stars of admiration. She was more than willing to stay by your side, pouring tea and attending to your needs. Several years passed in the skies where you sought seclusion. Thunder roared and dark clouds gathered in torrents. Finally, you welcomed it, your second heavenly tribulation, arriving after 100 years. As long as you overcame this trial, you attained 20,000 years of cultivation and fully transform into a human form, without any unexpected complications. The minor heavenly tribulation appeared ferocious at first, but after sensing an aura as terrifying as an unfathomable abyss radiating from you, it could only ignominiously dissipate into a light drizzle. Retreating in shame. In the moment of your breakthrough, strange phenomena manifested across the heavens and the earth. Golden lotus flowers bloomed in the void, and light rained down upon the forests and mountains. Within a brilliant, pristine shroud of white light, your massive body began to dissolve and reconstruct. As the light faded, a man in white robes, with hair as white as snow, handsome and elegant, stood quietly between the heavens and the earth. You possessed a profound temperament, calm as still water. Every gesture exuded a peerless beauty, as if returning to the very essence of nature. Shui Yuer watched, dazed, her small face flushed crimson. You had finally completed the perfect transformation from a demon beast into a human, possessing 20,000 years of supreme cultivation. However, at the very moment your transformation was successful, your heart suddenly constricted without warning. A bone-chilling sorrow, like an invisible venomous snake, coiled tightly around your heart. There was no apparent cause, yet it carried an oppressive, fatal premonition. Shui Yuer, with reddened eyes, arrived bearing news that would shake the world. The saint of the human race, Teng Xingxing, had passed away in the Great Xia dynasty. Upon hearing this name, you revealed no emotion, yet your eyes were filled with a profound emptiness. She was the very same girl who once loved to eat free candied hawthorns, the girl who used to laugh while running wildly upon your back, the girl with the innocent voice who would cry out, "People of the Bai clan, come and chase me." In the end, all these memories faded into the monochrome film of time. Swept away completely by the relentless winds of history, she lived for 139 years. Throughout this long and arduous life, she founded the Baijiao Academy, paving the way for women to pursue learning. Relying on her own strength, she traveled to the Great Xia dynasty, defeated all the leading scholars of the time, and emerged with an indomitable aura. She shattered the feudal customs that had endured for millions of years, finally allowing women to serve in the imperial court. She authored the Bai Jia Chuan, the Bai Guo Yu Ji, the Hao Ranzheng Qi Pian, and countless other works that would be celebrated for eternity. She became the third sage in human history, following only Li Sheng and Yue Sheng. On the day she was laid to rest, all the great figures of the human race gathered, from the emperors of various nations to the supreme emperor of Great Xia himself, all came to pay their final respects. You murmured, "Are you not already canonized as a saint?" The grief did not strike like a thunderbolt. Instead, like a paper boat taking on water, it slowly sank into the depths of your heart. You led Shui Yuer back to the Dongbao kingdom and stepped into the Baijia Academy, the only legacy she left behind in this world. The mountain behind the academy was her final resting place. As you entered the area, the entire mountain was bathed in a brilliant radiance. When the power of the sage illuminated the path, any ordinary demon or spirit that dared enter would be instantly reduced to dust. Even a high-level cultivator would be so shaken by this holy aura that they would be unable to move a muscle. Yet, you were astonished to discover that this holy energy, capable of destroying heaven and earth, felt like a gentle spring breeze brushing against you, without the slightest trace of suppression or rejection. Only then did you awaken from your daze. The demonic aura that had clung to you for all these years had been washed away. You finally understood that your inherent evil had long been purged, not for the sake of fame or status. It was to justify your existence to the world. With her entire life's blood and the prestige of a sage, she had cleansed you of your status as a demon. She did this so that you would be recognized by heaven and earth as a spirit beast. As long as you do not bring harm to humanity, whether it be the empires of men or the gods and Buddhas of the head, is a path that defies the natural order. The sins are heavy and deep. The most intelligent girl in this world, even when her life reached its final breath, turning into dust and earth, still used her saintly reputation to shield you from all the malice and storms of this world. You walk toward a simple white stone grave. Standing before the tomb is the second princess of Dongbao Kingdom, Jiang Xigiao, and beside her lies a coiled azure dragon. That dragon, upon sensing your aura, a massive beast of 20,000 years, is so terrified it nearly loses all composure. You ignore their fear and reach into your robes, pulling out a string of bright red candied haws. You slowly kneel, gently placing the candied haws before the tombstone. You stroke the cold headstone, your voice hoarse, filled with deep sorrow and tenderness. Little girl, Grandpa Bai has come to visit you. Upon hearing this form of address, Jiang Xigiao was struck as if by a thunderbolt, finally realizing your true identity. With reddened eyes, she tells you that she was the one entrusted by Qingsheng before her passing, specifically waiting here for your arrival. Qingsheng left a final testament, stating she was the one entrusted by Qingsheng before she perished, at the Likshu Palace of the Great Xia dynasty. There, she has left a surprise for you. Hearing this, your heart is filled with bitterness and emotion. This foolish girl was worried about you even unto her death. After leaving the academy, you return to the old Tang family estate in Bailing County. How the world has changed. The person who once wrote letters to the youth in the study is no more, nor is the one who always clumsily practiced calligraphy. Tang Jingchen and his kin are gone. Now the Tang family, even the sons of Tang Jingchen, have all long since returned to the earth. A young, innocent child walks out from the doorway, looking at you with strange, polite eyes, innocently asking who you are looking for. The children meet, yet know not each other, smiling and asking from where the guest has come. You offer a bitter smile, reach out to pat the child's head, say nothing, and turn to leave. Amidst the drizzling rain in Bailing County, your solitary silhouette completely bids farewell to the mortal ties that spanned a century. Finally, you arrive at the Zhong family manor in Xinjiang County. Today is the 129th birthday of the Duke of Zhongyi Zhonghui. The 10-year-old boy of yesteryear, who stood before his father's funeral altar without shedding a tear, holding his breath in silence, now has hair white as snow, his stern and imposing presence such that even the emperor must treat him with respect. You do not possess an invitation. Clad in white robes, you walked step by step into the Zhong family courtyard. The noisy commotion fell into immediate silence. The butler shouted for you to be driven away, and the guards drew their blades to confront you, but Zhonghuiz, sitting in his wheelchair, stared fixedly at you. His breath came in ragged gasps, his eyes turned crimson, and he waved his hands, signaling his attendants to wheel him before you. Trembling, he approached you, inhaling the scent lingering upon your body. An old man who had grown accustomed to the blood-soaked scenes of the imperial court could not hold back his tears in this very moment. Propping himself up with his hands against the wheelchair, he struggled to descend and fell to the ground, kneeling heavily at your feet in front of all the nobles and guards. Zhang Huize greeted his grandfather, leaving the entire assembly stunned as you looked down at this man on the verge of death, your gaze as gentle as still water. Over 100 years had passed, and Zhang Huize had grown old. You gently placed your hand upon the crown of his head. He gestured for the pair of golden youths standing firmly behind him, so that he might receive the 18 children who had been beaten until they bled. You waved your hand to wipe away their wounds, and left behind a single promise that would drive the world into a frenzy. The Zhong family shall enjoy 18 generations of prosperity. The guests in the hall were filled with envy, desperate to kneel and beg for such fortune. Yet they were horrified to discover their legs felt as if they were cast in steel, unable to bend their knees to kowtow. You looked at them with a cold, indifferent gaze. Those without fate are not permitted to bow. Half a year later, Zhonghuize passed away, and the entire nation mourned him. The newly enthroned emperor of the Dongtao kingdom had finally eliminated a source of anxiety in his heart. He greedily desired to capture you and bring you to the palace, to serve as a divine beast to protect his kingdom. The Taoists raised by the imperial authority, accustomed to using their influence to threaten others, approached you with threats, but you did not even lift an eyelid. A magnificent divine pressure descended from the heavens, and since your positions were irreconcilable, it was time to drag them down. Those Taoists shrieked in agony as they plummeted from midair, their foundations shattered. With a single hand, you crushed the Tao they had cultivated for thousands of years, casting it back into the dust of the mortal realm. That night, your divine sense spanned 10,000 miles, manifesting as a brilliant crimson dragon of fire. Ignoring the worldly fires that could incinerate 10,000 techniques within the imperial palace, you hovered directly within the emperor's study. Your eyes were cold and indifferent. Without a hint of mercy, your dragon-like aura pierced the emperor's defenses, severing 3 years of his lifespan, a minor punishment to serve as a grave warning. Consider yourself fortunate to have survived. Your voice, majestic as a god's, echoed through the study, leaving the monarch and his subjects trembling and collapsed on the floor, grateful merely to have survived the ordeal. You led Shuiyur together with the entire nation, embarking on a long journey eastward toward the great Xia celestial dynasty. You did not ride the clouds or tread upon the wind, but chose to traverse the mountains and rivers of the mortal realm on foot. 8 years later, you finally arrived at the borders of the great Xia celestial dynasty, the absolute seat of power for the human emperor. The swirling red flames of the mortal world collided with the ironclad killing intent of the imperial guards, forming a forbidden zone where no laws of cultivation could exist. The moment you stepped into this realm, the faint demonic aura upon Shuiyur was ignited by the worldly fires, causing her to cry out in unending pain. You sighed softly and extended a finger to her forehead. Relying on your status as the spiritual beast of the literary sage, you forcefully cleansed her of the malevolent demonic aura, allowing her to walk freely within this holy land of the human race. While passing through a bustling market, you witnessed a boy of about 8 or 9 years old rolling in the mud, desperate for a hot steamed bun. His mother, dressed in humble attire, was forced to beat him while weeping, as every copper coin was reserved for her husband's life-saving medicine. Onlookers, moved by pity, offered the boy a bun, but his mother tearfully refused the charity. You stood quietly at the end of the street, watching the sorrowful and wretched silhouettes of mother and child. Your gaze was incredibly complex. Even though your appearance had changed and your temperament had deepened, you immediately recognized the mark within the boy's soul. So you have reincarnated, after all? You whispered to yourself. Your voice carried the bitterness and relief of 100 years. This was the reincarnation of Teng Zijing, he who once possessed a pride that could rival the heavens. He who was willing to descend into the 18 levels of hell for your sake. He who endured endless tortures under the cleansing flames has now been reborn as this. A peasant boy who could not afford a bun and was reduced to wallowing in the dirt. You transformed into an elderly physician with the demeanor of a celestial sage, stepping into their dilapidated, windswept courtyard. You produced a set of silver needles, guiding them with the fluidity of flowing water to strike, pulling the emaciated man, who was on the verge of death, back from the gates of the underworld. Amidst the couple's tearful expressions of gratitude, you turned to leave. You patted the boy on the head, leaving behind the words, "Even the poorest household can give birth to a noble son," before turning away. Suddenly the boy called out to you loudly. He himself did not understand why he had shouted. He was simply mesmerized by the cold. A sense of inexplicable fear and emptiness welled up within him. He clutched the hem of his robe, feeling sheepish, and asked with concern, "Will we ever meet again?" You stopped in your tracks. You turned to look at him with a gaze as gentle as it had been years ago in the ruined shrine. You looked at the small, bedraggled boy, gave a soft shake of your head and thought, "Why would we meet again?" The boy pressed for an answer. You remained silent for a long time, then suddenly looked up to face the falling rain, smiling with a sense of freedom. "Because our affinity has reached its end," you said, turning away with a free spirit into the mist of the drizzling rain, walking further and further away, never to look back. A past life is a past life, this life is this life. He is no longer the person who relied on you for survival, and you are no longer the little creature trembling in his arms. To hold on to the most precious memories, carving them deep into one's heart forever, while never disturbing his new life. That was the final respect you could show him. The affinity began when you first saw him in the crowd, and it ended when you saw him once more in the crowd. Bidding farewell to the past, you finally stepped into the city of Daha, which stood like a primordial beast. Here all cultivation techniques cease to exist, and even peerless great demons must travel on foot like mere mortals. Yet you had nothing to fear. As you drew near, a brilliant golden light manifested as the Sage of Fire, enveloping the entire sky of the city. With a voice like thunder, you proclaimed to the world, "I am Baize. In 3 days' time I shall visit the Zhongli Academy." The entire city surged with excitement. The name Baize had been legendary for over 80 years. You were not merely a myth written in books, but an icon cherished by all. 3 days later, you led Shui and Veer forward. Amidst the cheers and clamor of countless nobles, scholars, and young maidens, you stepped through the gates of the Zhongli Academy. Inside the academy, facing a Grandmaster of Go, you defeated him in fewer than 20 moves, leaving his eyes bloodshot and his hands trembling like falling leaves until he finally conceded. You smiled, claiming it was merely luck, yet your display was nothing short of divine. Following this, Princess Dian Yun of the academy led you to the most sacred hall. At the far end of the great hall, standing tall are two colossal statues. The statue on the right, dressed in elegant suslin, is none other than Dong Ton Ton. Looking at the cold stone likeness, your nose stings with suppressed emotion. The young girl who once loved wearing red, arrogant, and peerless, had hidden her talents to become a pillar of the human race. In the end, she traded her red robes for white, forever remaining within this grand hall. Before the altar in the bedchamber, Dian Chong Yun solemnly hands it to you. The original manuscript of the Baize record emanates an aura of righteous integrity. As you turn the first page, a farmer's legacy is completely unveiled. Wandering through the mountains and rivers of the world, accidentally encountering the cloud flower, hearing that it was beneficial to the demon race, he seized it to gift to an elder. It turns out he did not just use this book to cleanse your identity as a demon. It turns out he used this book to orchestrate a fortune that would shake the heavens and earth. As the page turns, a pillar of light shoots toward the heavens, and a brilliant sacred cloud flower blossoms in the air of the Yinnuo city. That is the essence of the divine wings shed when the immortal realm collapsed, a spectacle rarely seen in the mortal world. Countless great powers of the world are driven mad with jealousy, yet due to the restrictive laws of the city, they cannot even take to the skies. They can only watch helplessly as Dang Than Tan has calculated everything. She knew that if it were left outside, it would inevitably attract countless great experts to hunt you down. Thus she hid the flower in this lawless city, concealing it within the sacred grounds of Van Non Thien Ha. Only someone within this human city could leisurely reach out their hand. Blocking the sun in the sky, you grasped the cloud-like flower. You spent 2 months in seclusion, completely refining it. Within the fragments of the flower's memories, you witnessed the terrifying scene of the immortal realm's collapse, seeing the high and mighty immortals and Buddhas screaming in the sea of despairing flames, a scene of total annihilation. You resisted the temptation of that illusory ascension. The day you emerged from seclusion, your cultivation had surged by another 10,000 years. You have now become an existence possessing, you have now become a venerated master with 30